Yes.
Anyway, karibuni sana kwa Morning Cafe.
Yes, and my name is Stanley Nyaringiti. It is a wonderful Wednesday morning. This is one of those days that we teach you how to cook. And today I'm very excited by the way. Leo tunapika kamurenda pale.
Na nini?
Na matumbo pia. Tutakuwa tunaona kutakuwa na ugali pia. But stick around, that is 9 a.m. to 10 a.m.
All right.
Oh yes. And just before that, 8 to 9, we're discussing matters of relationships, as we do every single Wednesday. And the conversation for the day, our question for the day, even for you, do you think, why does the past really matter when it comes to relationships? That is our question for the day for you. Keep talking to us on our socials. Number 2047 is our SMS number, at TV47KE on Facebook.
All right, so the big headlines today, of course, on the front page of Taifa Leo, Zakayo Ashuka. I think this is the most daring, very bold headline. And well, we'll be looking at this with my panelists on the state of the nation. It is very interesting. New face of protests, Daily Nation, as Ruto backs down. And the images on the front pages, I can tell you, Gen Z.
Tumekuja.
Nimewaina mishia. On the Standard,
Ruto bids retreat amid tax proposals and yes. As you can see, all the tear gas and all that. Yesterday was one of those days that you can walk around Nairobi and cry, no questions asked. Mtu anaona tu kilia lakini hajui, atadhani tu ni tear gas.
All right, winners and losers in Ruto tax trade-off plan. That's on the front page of the Business Daily. This is the kind of headline you expect after every budget statement is read. Now they're talking about that review downwards of the taxation proposals.
On bad taxes is on the big headline on Paper Daily.
Still very interesting images on the front page.
Mtu akirushwa kwa Mariamu pale.
Tech and talent power, noisy taxation demos. And yes, I think this one has captured it quite correctly. Yes. The kind of method that was used to mobilize protesters for this, what we saw yesterday, something we've never seen before. Previously, it was, the marshalling point was always the opposition. Yes, but this time around there was no opposition.
No opposition,
it was technology.
No politics
and talent.
Yes.
Yeah. Across the border in Uganda, government changes O-level exam grading system. We saw this headline, a similar headline in Kenya last year, when they were changing the KCSE grading system for the first time. Now it is happening in Uganda. And you know how big matters education are considered in the front pages in Uganda. So government changes O-level exam grading system. And this is also very important because many Kenyan students actually go to Uganda to pursue their O-level or A-level studies. So many young Kenyans are actually in Uganda in different schools pursuing education. So this will affect them as well.
Matters Parliament is back on the front page of the New Vision. They say Parliament committees and REM imposes term limits. That is, well, other highlights. Now getting into Tanzania, gazeti la Mwananchi, hofu yazidi kutanda, sama tukio la mtoto wa Simwe Novath kukwapuliwa mikononi mwa mama yake na baada ya siku 19 kukutwa ameuawa na viungo kunyofolewa limezidi kuibua hofu. Simanzi, mbunge ataka mjadala bungeni, Rais Samia eleza ilivyomguza. Alikuwa amezungumza hapo jana. That is one of the biggest conversations.
It's a very sad story.
Yes.
A young girl there abducted and then later on found dead. And this is something that has been happening in Tanzania for the longest. Any child with albinism is abducted or kidnapped and later found dead with some body parts missing because of some ritualistic beliefs that people with such conditions do possess some powers, and their bodies are used to create potent medication or things. And it's just a sick way that some human beings think, and it's a very sad story. Hofu yazidi kutanda. Still in Tanzania, matters business. Who's being truthful in the sugar controversy? The debate on what actually caused the recent spike in sugar prices took a new turn yesterday. This is in Tanzania, when the National Assembly Speaker Tulia Ackson referred the matter to Parliament's Privileges, Ethics and Powers Committee for further scrutiny. So discussions around sugar still big. Now, at least in Tanzania, the president has promised the media fresh hope And this is something similar to what's happening in Kenya. You know, a lot of media houses are still claiming a lot of payment from the government, and that's not happening. So the government owes a lot of media houses in Kenya currently, and as probably is reluctant to pay. That's why you see a lot of media houses struggling to survive. I've seen the same on the front page of Mwananchi.
Vilipeni vyombo vya habari hadi 24 tarehe 24 mwezi wa Disemba.
No, Disemba mwaka huu.
Mwaka huu.
Vilipeni vyombo vya habari hadi Disemba mwaka huu. At least the president in Tanzania has directed government departments to pay media houses, at least until the end of this year. Then they can review their working relationship. If only that could happen in Kenya as well. All right, those are the dailies this morning. We can take a look at traffic now.
And see how things are going to be looking like.
And I know many people are thinking that probably there are issues. Well, the main tributaries in Nairobi are good, but I can see that this is as far back as, because this is Limuru probably, a bit of a slowdown here from Limuru town all the way to Kikuyu. Quite busy right now. I'm not saying there's any incident happening, but it's busy. You can see it's yellow all the way to Gitaru. But after that into town, it's green all the way, nothing much to report. Thika Road 2 looking good this morning, all the way into town. So is Kiambu Road and the Nairobi Expressway, as well as Mombasa Road into town, looking good as well. The Southern Bypass too looking good. Let's take a look at Langata Road, and yes, Langata Road all the way to Nyayo Stadium looking good as well. Areas around Ngong Road. This is Ngong Road from Junction Mall all the way past Prestige Plaza to the City Mortuary roundabouts. Nothing to report there, is looking good. So most of the main tributaries to Nairobi are looking good. And interestingly, if you take a look at Jogoo Road, it is about 9 minutes past 6, and even the usual slowdown around Makadara is not there. So, but once you get to Mbotela, Makongeni, towards the City Stadium roundabout, traffic is building up. That is what we can report at this time of day. Everything else just looks normal. Pangani, of course, is starting to build up at the Pangani interchange after Muthaiga, but if you check Thika Road, it's smooth all the way. So in as far as traffic is concerned, this Wednesday morning, it is smooth.
8 minutes past the top of the hour, lakini kama unakimbia interview, anza kutoka sahi.
Of course it will build up.
Kabla kupate matatani. You can start to take a look at the weather updates, and we do start with Limuru, tuone how things are looking like. 12 degrees Celsius is how it is, and they say chances of it raining today in Limuru is quite high. This weather temperatures are expected to rise into the mid-morning, and some light showers now after the midday. It maintain up to 16, 17, 18, ikienda sana 19 degrees Celsius, that is in Limuru. Let's take a look at Nandi, down south, 12 degrees Celsius, quite chilly right now. But then it is anticipated that it will be increasing into the day, as high as 24 degrees Celsius. Chances of it raining in Nandi is quite minimal. Finally, to the coastal region, into Kilifi, let's see how things are looking like. Right now at 9 minutes past 6 a.m., it is 24 degrees Celsius. But then they say it is 26 degrees. It feels like 26 degrees Celsius. That's quite high, ukiwa pale. But then, despite the fact that there is warm temperatures in Kilifi, there's going to be some light showers. Chances of it raining 30%. That means right now there might be light showers in Kilifi, or expected to be as the day progresses, and this is going to be intensifying into the day. That is just an update of the weather. Right now, though, let's take a look at the diary, what to expect. A couple of bits. The first off, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua jetted out of the country yesterday, and he is going to be representing President William Ruto at the swearing-in of South Africa's re-elected president, that is Cyril Ramaphosa. He is expected to also give a whole congratulatory kind of message to the people of South Africa. That is the first one. Also, judicial officers are set to return to work today following a directive by Chief Justice Martha Koome. You remember Kathy's magistrates and judges had said that they will boycott going to work and their duties as of today all the way to Friday due to poor working conditions. So that is going to be happening. That's on the next page. Yes, matters judicial officers returning to work. On the next page, we do expect Kenya Private Sector Alliance, that is KEPSA, will be addressing the media today on the private sector perspective on the recently announced national budget 2024-2025. And speaking of which, a public service governance organization will also address on matters state of the nation's governance as well as possible solutions the government should implement to lower the cost of living. And finally, Interior Principal Secretary Raymond Omolo will today launch the National Campaign Against Drug Abuse, that is NACADA Strategic Plan 2023 all the way to 2027 strategic plan. So stick around for that in our subsequent bulletins. That and much more, including conversations around finance bill, even as we do expect MPs to be voting tomorrow on Thursday. Conversations in the Kenya Kwanza camp as well as Azimio camp will continue.
Oh yes.
And even for the activists, the fact that so many were arrested, quite a number of Kenyans who were arrested yesterday. So we do expect also other NGOs and activists to be addressing today on that fact. Being
a Wednesday, there are two sessions of Parliament. There's one in the morning starting at 9:30 in the National Assembly, and the second one starting at 2:30 in the afternoon. Yeah. And because the Finance Bill 2024 was tabled for the second reading yesterday, now debate should begin. And those amendments that were proposed, what was read out at State House yesterday morning, should now kick in as debate continues, because it does not apply until the amendments are actually adopted into the Finance Bill 2024. So debate on the same should start today, and probably towards the end of the week, tomorrow, or maybe even next week, then we see before they actually vote to pick those amendments or to drop them as well. So the conversation will definitely continue. Whether or not we'll see any action outside Parliament today or tomorrow, we still wait to see. Right. Right now, though, let's take a look at today in history.
On this day, 3 men were found guilty of abetting al-Shabaab fighters who carried out the Garissa University attack that killed 148 people, mostly students, on the 2nd of April 2015.
All right, on the front page of the Standard, Ruto beats retreat.
Which is actually very light today.
But I'm sure most of it is dedicated to the protests yesterday.
Yes.
Ruto beats retreat amid tax protests. And yes, the front page, most of it has been dedicated to news about yesterday's events. They say a win and a hit. After 6 hours of intense talks with Kenya Kwanza MPs, President Ruto pushed to a corner by rejection of the unpopular finance bill and chaotic protests, was forced to withdraw 18 punitive tax proposals, but immediately introduced new ones while enhancing others. Now, this is a story on page 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. A lot has not been reported because, yes, as they say, some of them were removed, some introduced. What has changed? Of course, 16% VAT on bread removed. VAT on transportation of sugar removed. VAT on financial services, foreign exchange transactions removed. No increase in mobile money transfer fees. Levies on housing fund and social health insurance to become income tax deductible, meaning that if at all it is deducted from your salary, it will not incur any taxation.
All right. And that is just this a win and a hit, among other headlines on the front page of the Standard. On the left scroll, court services paralyzed as slain official mourn, but then according to Chief Justice Martha Koome, These duties are set to continue today, but then Mother Koome also said that the court services should not happen under the tent due to matters security, so do expect to see how that will be shaping up. Into education matters, on the left scroll, 20,000 intern teachers to be employed. Finally, well, after being up in arms on the streets, the intern teachers will get employed beginning July after funds were provided to absorb them on permanent and pensionable terms. That is just matters a nutshell. Into maswala ya sporty, why Germany is in safe hands. Can flip the back page. Well, inaongelelea maneno ya the Euros 2024. Euro 2024. Croatia hope to avoid shameful end for golden generation. Have you picked a team yet, ama?
It's still too early. It's still too early. We'll get to that point.
That, in a nutshell, is the front page of the Standard.
All right, on the Daily Nation, focus is still on yesterday's protests. Very interesting images on the front page of protesters engaging with the police. New face of protests is a big headline as Ruto backs down. And the story has been on who are these people who are protesting? What is their age? What generation are they? And you can actually see that everyone accepts that this is actually a different generation of protesters, which is, I think, the newest thing. And no one is yet to properly put a finger on how exactly this new generation of protesters will behave.
Interestingly enough, on ground as well as online, whoever was protesting, they were just not chanting. They were stating articles and facts about the finance bill. So this means it is a generation which understands what the finance bill says, and they're coming with the facts. So it is interesting.
Oh, yes, they say the rise of the Gen Z, their youthful looks, dressing, and even the placards they wielded trampled on the stereotype that protests belong to ragtag delinquents who have nothing else to do, and who are often politicians' hirelings. And yesterday they took to the streets in their hundreds, armed with their smartphones, to oppose new tax measures, with President Ruto and his ruling Kenya Kwanza Alliance MPs had just made concessions too. This story has been extensively covered on pages 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, and you can see some more photos of what's happening, especially on pages 6 and 7. Photos of some of the protesters being arrested or accosted by the police. And yes, as you mentioned, interestingly, yes, all these protesters had phones and they were taking images and videos and sharing them. Some of them were even doing lives on TikTok and on Facebook while they protest. So everything, you could actually watch like a live session, the entire protest. Well, so meanwhile, Finance Bill, state targets petroleum to fill tax hole. Azimio wants overhaul of controversial bill. So yes, there are things that are still not clear, especially on how the state will fill the gap that has now been forced on them by the reduction of some of the taxes they had proposed. Other stories that still manage to find space on the front page of the Daily Nation: a reprieve as judges and magistrates end go-slow. And yes, they had embarked on a go-slow following the shooting of their colleague last week. Fatal shooting, I must add. Elsewhere, how President shielded Gachagua from MPs at Kenya Kwanza meeting. President William Ruto shot down attempts by a section of Kenya Kwanza MPs to discuss the conduct of his deputy during yesterday's State House meeting. That story is on page 10. And finally, we are committed to police mission, Koome tells Haiti officials. So if we flip the paper, we are unbowed, says CJ on magistrate's murder. Matters judiciary and the conduct of judicial officers, featuring on the back page of the Daily Nation today.
Right. On the Daily Nation, you can take a look at Business Daily, winners and losers in Ruto tax trade-off plan, win for car owners and M-Pesa users, as well as medium and micro, small and medium enterprises. Motorist, gamblers, importers are on the side of losers. The revenue target set by the Treasury for the next fiscal year is 3.34 trillion Kenya shillings. They also have a photo of the Parliament protests yesterday, where a woman is being arrested. She was part of groups of mostly youthful protesters on the same. Other highlights, SHIF knocks out youth in cancer screening cover. So they say young Kenyans will be forced to foot the cost of screening for 4 common types of cancer despite making mandatory payments to the new Social Health Insurance Fund, SHIF, posing potential setbacks in ongoing efforts to fight the disease. Wow. There's a brief on the benefits under SHIF shows that Kenyan men below the age of 40 years and 55 years will pay for screening for colon cancer and prostate cancer, respectively. That's quite a whole conversation that most people really should know about. On the ticker, matters economy, taxes on sale of beer, fuel, cosmetics post a rare fall, and tax on production and importation of alcoholic drinks, fuel, cigarettes, cosmetics, and cars have posted a rare drop, pointing to low volumes on increased taxation. The highlights that you really need to know. Pale chini matters markets, interbank borrowing rates dip to 6-month low. That, well, in a nutshell, is Business Daily.
All right, tuangazie gazeti ambayo habari ile imepewa kipaumbele kwenye kurasa wa mbele, italeta mchecheto kweli kweli.
Mchecheto.
Gazeti la Taifa Leo. Habari hii sio mimi nasema. Lakini gazeti habari kuu pale nasema Zakayo ashuka. Zakayo ni nani? Sio mimi nimesema. Sio mimi sijui. Gazeti la Taifa Leo. Wanasema baada ya maandamano yaliyoongozwa na chipukizi maarufu kama Gen Z, serikali yaondoa baadhi ya ushuru. Zakayo ashuka. 16% ya VAT kwa mkate out. VAT kwenye usafirishaji wa miwa pia out. VAT kwenye huduma za fedha na ubadilishaji wa fedha za kigeni nje. Hakuna ongezeko la kutumia na kuhamisha pesa kwa njia ya simu nje. 25% ya ushuru wa magari pia umeondolewa. Sio 25, 2.5. Ushuru wa bidhaa kwa mafuta ya kupikia kuondolewa nje. Bidhaa zinazotengenezwa nchini hazitavutia ushuru wa eco, ili walikuwa wanaita eco tax. Ushuru dhidi ya mayai, vitunguu na viazi vinavyoagizwa kutoka nje ili kuwalinda wakulima wa ndani pia vimeondolewa. Na habari hii imepewa kipaumbele, nafasi kubwa zaidi kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo imeangazia habari hii. Wanasema serikali ya Rais William Ruto yalegeza kamba kufuatia pressure kutoka kwa umma na kuondoa baadhi ya ushuru. Mashirika na wataalamu walitaja dhalimu katika mswada wa fedha. Habari kamili kwenye ukurasa wa pili wa gazeti hili. Habari moja tu nyingine ndio imepata nafasi kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo, na ni kuhusu idara ya mahakama ikiendelea kuomboleza kifo cha hakimu mwandamizi. Majaji, mahakimu na mawakili kote nchini jana waliungana kuandamana kuomboleza na kulalamikia kuuawa kwa Monica Kivuti, aliyekuwa hakimu mwandamizi wa Makadara. Habari kamili kwenye ukurasa wa 3. Hilo ndilo gazeti la Taifa Leo, lakini habari kuu pale Zakayo ashuka.
On People Daily War on bad taxes, they say over 200 people arrested and others injured, well, including a police officer. Leona, your video, it was very terrifying to even watch. During protests against proposals in the finance bill, they gave coverage on this on about 4 pages inset. Also inset there, Parliament respected the views of Kenyans. That is according to President William Ruto there. Other highlights on the top. First off, Koome bans hearing of cases under tense over insecurity. This is what I was alluding to earlier. They say move follows fatal gun attack on city magistrate by a senior police officer. So according to CJ, the Judiciary has repeatedly requested the Executive and Parliament for resource allocation in upgrade our court facilities. But pale juu zaidi, maneno yenye sijui kama pia Gen Z wanafaa kusoma. Hiyo husu. Tips for successful and happy marriage in your People Daily.
Please focus on what is at hand.
Finance bill.
Yes.
It focus on finance.
Read the finance bill. Not getting married at this point. Finally on the Star. And I think this is a headline that captured the mood of the day and probably what really happened yesterday. It was about tech and talent power, noisy taxation demos. how the technology and internet connectivity was used to actually not just mobilize the protesters, but also communicate about what exactly was happening. As we said earlier, there were a lot of videos and pictures shared as the protest continued, and anyone who was following the proceedings from home or anywhere else could tell up to the minute what exactly was happening. Even when that unfortunate incident happened, when the policeman holding a piece that exploded happened, people knew immediately. Actually, some of them watched it live from wherever they were. So young Kenyans rewrite protest playbook with social media and live streams. This, if you ask me, this is what has really captured what happened yesterday. Ruto bows to pressure, drops some punitive proposals as MPs begin debate. Also, the Star has given this piece of news prominence on pages 4, 5, and 6, with a lot of interesting photos on the front page as well. Other highlights, quickly. SHA, that's a Social Health Authority tax to raise 148 billion in 1 year, according to the Health Ministry. Elsewhere, help us bring back the body of our son from US, urges family. And finally, Treasury yet to disburse 98 billion shillings to counties. That's the Star this morning.
All right, now to the cartoons. Harry is back on the page 12 of Standard.
At least today has tried to talk about Kenyan matters.
Kenyan matters, yeah.
But still related to
matters outside
the global stage.
Yes. They have a donkey there. Ile unaambiwa ukivuka njia mbili. Njia panda. Kuna kitu upasuka. So Kenyans trying to go west as well as east, and they're carrying the burden of inflation, corruption, loans, and debt. Heading east, they'll face cheap, addictive loans. When they head west, there is IMF, World Bank.
And yes, Kenya there is depicted as a donkey. Punda.
Imechoka.
Alichoka. On page 13 of the Daily Nation, the cartoon talks about police reaction to the protests yesterday. And the police there in their normal anti-riot gear now telling the protesters, how dare you peacefully protest over high taxes. Even the police were shocked at this new type of protesters. They're not used to the Gen Zs on the streets. Interestingly, there were no shops damaged. No property was damaged, no vehicle was hit, apart from what we saw the police do. And unfortunately, one of the officers got injured seriously while handling a piece of explosive. Yes.
Oh yes, and people there were asking, why are you arresting me, even quoting articles.
Well, okay, and as far as the officer is concerned, really he was just following orders, he was working. Maybe probably he's even a Gen Z himself, you don't know. Alikuwa tu kazini. Alafu, as you follow orders, mambo ikalipuka. Yes. But yes, that in a nutshell is what the dailies have covered this morning, and we'll be looking at this and a lot more with our panelists this morning. Do we have the panelists anywhere?
The panelists, Kuhapa.
Yes, on State of the Nation this morning, Titus Lote and Pika Chiliba will be in studio alongside Pamela Odhiambo, former Women Representative Migori, and Hesbon Owila, media and political communications expert. Our panelists this morning as we discuss the State of the Nation, and of course with special focus on the finance bill and the changing face of protesters in Kenya. Do stand by for that conversation, of which you can be part of now that you're already active on social media. Yeah, you know. Very interesting. Gen Zs are watching us.
Oh, yeah.
And yes, you can be part of it through X, on X, our Twitter handle. What am I saying? On X, our handle.
Yes.
Not X on Twitter. It's X.
Our X handle.
Your X.
Our X handle.
Okay. Our X handle is at TV47 Kenya. My ex is at Fred Ndimuli.
Hii wiki ni no hate speech, so nimetulia hii wiki.
Oh, I'm corrected there. At TV47 News on X, TV47 Kenya on Facebook.
Oh yes. Coming up at around 8 a.m. There's the Past Really Matters, the conversation that we'll be having. Richard Ziwa as well as Lydia Ziwa, both councillors, helping us have this conversation. And our question for the day for you is, why does the past matter in a relationship? required. As a past matter in a relationship, 22047 is also our SMS number. 0793 267 279 is our WhatsApp number. Later on, tutakuwa tuna pika rumonde matumbo with creamy murenda and pumpkin leaves. Hiyo wezi hata.
Rumonde matumbo murenda.
Niliambiwa ni it's a meru.
Pumpkin ungeandika tu malenge.
Malenge. Ndio pia shosha naelewa.
Okay.
Oh yes.
All right, Chef Brian will be with us this morning. Do stand by for that and a lot more. This is the Morning Cafe. Good morning.
Kila kiongozi ana hadithi yake ya kipekee.
Wazazi wangu walikuwa bit strict kwa sababu mamangu mwenyewe, mimi kutoka kuzaliwa sijailala nje.
The white small one, huyo ana sniff gunpowder na risasi na bomb. Alafu huyo mwingine ni ridgeback ana sniff simba.
Even the employees knows that. So when in the boardroom is the chairman, the CEO, and the rest of.
What point are you a wife?
The minute you get to that inside that door, you become now the wife.
Na kila maamuzi wanayoyafanya hufichua mengi kuhusu utu wao na uongozi wao.
We see God blessing us, and we now realize the power of giving also has to be rewarded back.
Kupitia kipindi Mfahamu Kiongozi, tunakuletea mahojiano ya kusisimua na uchambuzi wa kina kuhusu viongozi wetu.
Pick your core business as the bigger stones. Put them in your diary first. Give priority the bigger things.
Usikose kila Alhamis saa 1:30 jioni.
In a world where challenges are as common as opportunities, there are those who dare to defy the odds. They are the entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurship isn't just about starting a business, it's about embracing uncertainty, pushing boundaries and turning dreams into reality.
Hata ambao ni pesa ya kusave, wallahi. Ambao mwaka ni pesa nyingi sana.
As long as you're earning something, there's always that opportunity to save. And you start with where you are.
The way we run the business is in a very unforgiving way, where every team member has to bring out their best.
So, to all the dreamers, innovators, and risk takers out there, remember, being an entrepreneur isn't just a job, it's a way of life. Join the journey. Become an entrepreneur. The Grind, Mondays at 7:30 p.m.
Here on Beyond the Limit, we celebrate the extraordinary achievements of individuals who redefine possibilities. In a journey of resilience and determination, these individuals demonstrate that limitations are merely stepping stones to greatness.
I'm Nancy Njoroge, a mother of 3. I have 2 girls and a boy who is Clinton and who is autistic.
When my heart got healed, I decided to come out to be creating CP awareness, to let other people know that there is such a condition, and people that has it is not that they are witches.
Together, let's go beyond the limit every Saturday at 8 p.m.
Welcome to The Realtor, where we take you on an exciting journey from bare land to dream home. Step 1. Finding the perfect plot. We explore location, size, and potential. Next, construction begins. Witness the foundation being laid, walls rising, and rooms taking shape. Step 3. electricity matters, we delve into wiring, switches and smart home tech. Step 4. From paint choices to fixtures, it's all about aesthetics. Step 5. It's time to get the right furniture. Finally, the big day. Time to move in and create memories. Join us on the journey to making homes a reality on The Realtor, Tuesdays 6:30.
Kila kiongozi ana hadithi yake ya kipekee.
Wazazi wangu walikuwa bit strict kwa sababu mamangu mwenyewe, mimi kutoka kuzaliwa sijailala nje.
The white small one, huyo ana sniff gunpowder na risasi na bomb. Alafu huyo mwingine ni ridgeback, ana sniff simba.
Even the employees knows that. So when in the boardroom is the chairman, the CEO, and the rest of.
At what point are you a wife?
The minute you get to that inside that door, you become now the wife.
Na kila maamuzi wanayoyafanya hufichua mengi kuhusu utu wao na uongozi wao.
We see God blessing us, and we now realize the power of giving also has to be rewarded back.
Kupitia kipindi Mfahamu Kiongozi, tunakuletea mahojiano ya kusisimua na uchambuzi wa kina kuhusu viongozi wetu.
Pick your core business as the bigger stones. Put them in your diary first. Give priority the bigger things.
Usikose kila Alhamis saa 1:30 jioni.
In a world where challenges are as common as opportunities, there are those who dare to defy the odds. They are the entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurship isn't just about starting a business, it's about embracing uncertainty, pushing boundaries and turning dreams into reality.
Hata mbao ni pesa ya kusave. Wallahi. Mbao mwaka ni pesa nyingi sana.
As long as you're earning something, there's always that opportunity to save. And you start with where you are.
The way we run the business is in a very unforgiving way, where every team member has to bring out their best.
So, to all the dreamers, innovators and risk takers,
All right. A very good morning. Welcome back to Morning Cafe on TV47 with me, Fred Indimuli. This morning we're privileged to have in studio Titus Lote, MP Kachiliba. Good morning, karibu sana. And also joining us today, Hesbon Owila, media and political communications expert. It is your first time at TV47. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
Karibu sana. Also joining us via video link will be Pamela Odhiambo, former woman representative Migori County. And once we have that connection, she will be joining the conversation. A quick look at the top trends on X this morning. The top trending topic is that hashtag Reject Finance Bill 2024. The second one, Occupy Parliament. Gen Z is a third trending hashtag, followed by Free Hanifa, and Ruto must go is also a top trend this morning. A quick look at the headlines and on the dailies, and each and every daily is talking about the demonstrations yesterday against the finance bill, put side by side with what happened at State House Nairobi yesterday, following that Kenya Kwanza parliamentary group meeting, where the states eventually agreed to cut down on some of the tax proposals that had caused a lot of disquiet among Kenyans. And just before that, there's another piece of news that probably many people may have ignored. Of course, the protests occupied most of our conversations yesterday, and we will get to that. But before that, yesterday, a lot was happening within the judiciary. And one of the headlines on the front page of the Daily Nation says, "Reprieve as judges and magistrates end go slow." It is what features on the back page. We are unbowed, says CJ on magistrate's murder. And this ideally should have been a big discussion yesterday, but of course the protests took center stage. Let's start with that. And Bwana Lote, there are concerns that we are seeing more and more cases of gun violence, fatal gun violence. And the issue that we are seeing is that these are not even illegal guns. These are firearms that are licensed. A number of your colleagues, even in the National Assembly, have been accused of misusing firearms. Some of the accusations are matters before the courts of law. We may not necessarily go into that. But most of these cases involve licensed firearms. And one may wonder, is there an issue of concern here? Are we missing something? Previously, criminals and all this acts of violence involving guns, there was a lot to do with the illegal guns. But now we're seeing licensed firearm holders, including policemen, misusing their firearms. What do you think the problem is?
Well, thank you and good morning once again. To the topic immediately, on issues to deal with the misuse of licensed firearms in this country. Personally, I first of all appreciate that the law allows that there are people who can be able to be given the guns to legally own them because of self-protection and so because of their security based on their levels of living in the society. And I think every Kenyan is allowed to apply for a licensed gun as long as you're able to prove that you can responsibly use the gun. And the reason why, if before you're given a licensed gun, you're supposed to be taken through a psychiatrist test so that your mental abilities is tested. But I think the reason why we are actually saying that the misuse of licensed guns is increasing because of two factors. One, the guns that used to terrorize people, the illegal guns, have actually subsided in terms of numbers. I think the government has been able to mop out most of the illegal guns, and so you cannot hear the misuse of the illegal guns because their numbers have reduced, unlike previously when we had a lot of illegal guns. And so the legal guns now are the ones that are terrorizing Kenyans, including police officers hiring out guns for thugs to use, because now thugs cannot have access to illegal guns. Two, that is the factor that illegal guns are not there, and so most of the guns that are sounding are actually the legal guns. The next one is the state of the minds of many people. We are all told that we are all mad. If you hear, we're told that everybody is mad, but the levels of madness is different. And the reason why we are taken through a psychiatrist test before you're given a licensed gun. I think what the government has failed is an annual evaluation of the people that are holding these guns, so that if you're sane this year, you next year, because of the economic and financial and all other aspects, you might find yourself to be insane. If you look, for instance, of the police officer that shot the judge, this person became temporarily sane because he realized that the wife was being sentenced in an environment that was not supposed to, according to him, and so he became temporarily sane and he was able to use the gun. And so for me, I'll say, first of all, the situations that we are subjected to, people are becoming every day stressed because of the environment that we are living in, and because people are stressed and they still hold this gun, then they can misuse these guns. So I will urge, it will be important that those people who are having licensed guns, including the police officers in the police stations. We've seen juniors shooting their seniors, and when they are asked, they say, we were stressed by this person. So I think it all boils down to holding a gun and having an unstable mind that has not been tested. So I think it will be important in future that everybody is taken through an annual evaluation of their state of the mind before they are allowed to continue using the gun, or the gun is withdrawn from them. Okay.
And interestingly, even as we speak about the mental health of many Kenyans and even licensed firearm holders, a number of these incidences have involved members of parliament. One at a club in Nairobi, another one in Western Kenya during some political activity, and a third one somewhere in Thika just recently. When Mheshimiwa Lote talks about the mental state of Kenyans. It means that even the mental health of our members of parliament is being called into question. Bwana Owila.
Well, I think members of parliament are just citizens of this country like any other citizen. So when we talk about issues of brain and mind, I think they are not exempt, from such conversations. But essentially, in most instances where you see a gun holder has, misused the gun or has, used the gun inappropriately, pretty much a question of, shooting people, there are two parties involved, and you may not just talk about the mental health of one of the parties. Because in most of these incidences, especially the recent one in Kiambu County, I think it was in Kiambu County, as a mob, when you charge at leaders who are going about their business, because members of parliament have three roles: to represent the people, oversight, and legislate. And part of all this boils down to interacting with the people to know what kind of legislations are needed, what issues are supposed to be presented to the relevant authorities. Therefore, to a large extent, most of these crises that people face that call on, members of the public to attend rallies where they have nothing constructive to contribute, and therefore they just go there as disruptors, should be looked at from a point of, what is their mental stability? What are these things that, push them into behaviors that are questionable? And this is both the gun holders and the people who are at the end of the bullets that are misused from the guns. And I think to a large extent, there are a lot of things, social, economic, and political, and even cultural issues that as a society we need to have a lot of conversations around. To what extent are we becoming so mediatized and so siloed, so much so that we could be going through so much, but because you are interacting through a mediated communication platform, people don't have an understanding of what other people are going through the society. And therefore we don't have a way of mitigating, the mental health challenges that people very close to us might be having.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'd like to invite Pamela Odhiambo into this conversation. Pamela, good morning. Former woman representative of Migori County, joining us via video link. Pamela, we're discussing the issue of misuse of licensed firearms, and we're basing this on the latest incident that happened inside a court, a Makadara court, where a magistrate was fatally shot by a police officer, and we're linking this to a string of incidences that we've seen and witnessed over the recent months, including some that have involved members of the National Assembly or the legislature who have been accused or are in ongoing cases linked to the misuse of firearms. And we're trying to understand what the issue could be. Why are we heading towards this direction of misuse of licensed firearms?
Thank you very much, Indimuli, and good morning, Kenya. First, allow me to also join Kenyans in sending my sympathy to the family of the slain judge, and even thereafter the police officer and all those people who have lost someone because of the firearms. As I have heard my colleagues allude to, I think, Indimuli, for a long time, we have taken social interactions for granted, and there are so many stresses indeed that is going on in the country and across different cadres of people. Even among students you find academic stress and demand, and even among young workers you know these demands of job and the status of joblessness, and to the parents there is always a lot of stress everywhere. And the truth of the matter is both the one carrying the gun and the other person who may be considered aggressor by the one shooting could have lost a bit of trying to scan and understand the body language of the individual involved, and the breakdown in communication and failure to be able to understand what the other person is actually saying. I think all this has come to what we are seeing, and it is my prayer that Kenyans will come back to their senses and hold meaningful conversations where there is communication. What has happened over the years, many are the times that people have just shouted at each other without wondering what is exactly the message. What does somebody want to pass across? And even if it is those who are in authority, like, sorry for this, I've been one of them, the MPs, sometimes they wake up and start saying things and they imagine that they are communicating to the masses. And yet, rarely do they take serious time to just sit there and listen to their constituents and understand what is it that they are communicating. As leaders, we have woken up and done things, hoping that we are making our people happy or we are serving the people. But many are the times that if you really tried to understand the cry of the people and their need, you would find a big mismatch between what the leader says or what the leader wants to do and what the people really want done. And I think it is a high time we worked on this idea of effective communication so that we are able to get the actual message that somebody is trying to pass across. Okay. Because like the case of the court, it leaves such an open wound to everybody else, not just the slain judge, not just the policeman, but everyone else who has ever gone to court. It has always been the last resort for getting ample time to explain yourself, to be listened to by assumedly sober judge who will then wake up and make a very sober decision which is not prejudiced in any manner. So to the extent that in such a scenario is where we end up with such death, I'm telling you, it is scaring. It is a reason to sit down as a nation and wonder again, what exactly must we do? But I think the whole idea settles around communication, and not just communication, but effective communication where there is active listening. Listening is not hearing. I want Kenyans to get this again. When you are listening, it's not just a matter of sensing a sound from a speaker, but it is a matter of trying to understand the material being discussed from the speaker's perspective, to be able to help you understand it the way the speaker is understanding it. Not necessarily to be in agreement, but even if you were to differ, then you differ in a manner that the sender of the message feels like, yes, they have understood me, they have taken into consideration what I have said or what I've wanted to communicate. Okay, but thank you for that, Pamela. Back to you, Bwana Lote, because a few years back, and if we may draw parallels with what happens in Uganda, we've seen Uganda, which is just our neighbor here, guns are available. Even security guards hold guns. But when we tried to introduce that in Kenya, there was a lot of concern that probably our society is not ready for it. What is the difference between the Kenyan society and the Ugandan one to make Kenyans unable to live in a manner where guns or licensed guns can be handled responsibly?
Well, I won't really say that Uganda is very responsible in terms of the way they're using their guns. But one thing that is very different between Kenya and Uganda is Kenya believes, and which is right, that we are a more civilized society and we are not supposed to be policed more even when you have a gun, unlike Uganda. Take, for example, the NPRs, the NPRs now. We used to call them the KPRs. Now they are the National Police Reservists. In Kenya, when you're given a gun as an NPR, and I think everybody that's got a licensed gun actually acts like an NPR. What they do is once they take your details and they know you, they give you the gun, and it becomes your responsibility to take care of yourself. In Uganda, there is more policing of even the NPRs. They call them the LDUs, the Local Defense Unit. These are just like the counterparts of our NPRs. But then they are organized into structures and they're supposed to report to a commander, an army commander. So everybody that has got a gun in Uganda, whether legal, whether in the structure or as a reserve police, it reports to an authority that will be checking on you every single time. And most of the LDUs do not live in their homes. If you go to Kenya now, if you come to our villages in Kenya, for those people who have got the NPR guns, you go with your gun to your house and nobody questions you apart from annually or probably biannually, where you go and at least be able to have your gun checked by the police officers close to you. In Uganda, you don't do that. You don't go.
Better controls.
You don't go with a gun to your house. You stay in an organized environment. So all the LDUs are sitting. You find them building touch houses, and that is where they stay. You don't stay in your house despite the fact that you are not a regular police officer. So that kind of policing of the people who have got guns makes Uganda a little bit safer, because at least on every single day, every single time, there is somebody watching the people that have got guns. And I think that is where we have departed from. And if you look at the societies that are more developed, like the United States of America, where you can buy a gun as long as you're able to apply for a license, you've also seen gun misuses. And somebody, young man, a 15-year-old, goes to a school and shoot everybody.
Is that where we are heading now that you say that we are more liberal in as far as
yeah, we will be heading there, because again, I'll come back to our mental stability. Our mental stability are something that needs to be, even those that are shooting people in the US. There was a shooting in Oklahoma where I think 56 students were killed. If you look at the killers, they will tell you they had a mental instability. And even the politicians here, I've heard you asking if politicians have got mental instability. We've also sometimes got what we call temporal mental instability, where if you're addressing a crowd and somebody just shouts a very insane and obtuse words to you, you become at that point temporarily sad, mad. And at that point you can act out of your mind. And so the madness that I'm talking about is not the constant madness where you find somebody wearing rags and walking on the streets. Sometimes it comes up. Some people, when they get angry, even when they are very good pastors or they're good imams or whatever, when they get angry, they smash phones, they smash their TVs, they do everything. They become temporarily mad at that particular instance. So everybody that misuses a gun, at that point, that person is temporarily mad. And so if we become so liberal, like we're going to the United States way, or where people are given licensed guns at free will, we will definitely get misuse of guns like we see.
Okay, and briefly before we take a break, husband, do you believe that now we should be looking at better gun controls? Probably if we remain a bit too liberal, we might be headed the American way.
You know, when we talk about being too liberal, it basically means that we're operating within a legal framework, because there is no liberal without a legal provision, you know. And I think that's not where the challenge is. The challenge is not in coming up with the right legislation, the right laws to control guns. I think the issue here lies with, you know, the person. How do we control our societies? How do we control individuals? And how do we deal with the triggers of mental instability among individuals? Because I think the few instances that we've seen people misuse guns, it's not like they don't understand the law. They do understand the law. They know there is punishment all over the world, even in liberal societies. It's just a question of there are instances of insanity that are triggered by certain elements, you know. Okay. And I think if we can address that, if we can address the mental well-being, you know, of human beings, then human beings will operate within the law.
Okay. Time now for us to take a break. When we come back, we up the ante. Zakayo Ashuka, that's a big headline on the front page of Taifa Leo. Ruto beats retreat amid tax protests, and new face of protests as Ruto backs down. They say the rise of the Gen Z. You're watching Morning Cafe. Let's take a short break.
Kwa kutumia jiko wazi ni chanzo kikubwa cha uchafuzi wa hewa nyumbani mwako.
Kila kiongozi ana hadithi yake ya kipekee.
Wazazi wangu walikuwa bit strict kwa sababu mamangu mwenyewe, mimi kutoka kuzaliwa sijailala nje.
The white small one, huyo ana sniff gunpowder na risasi na bomb. Alafu huyo mwingine ni ridgeback, ana sniff simba.
Even the employees knows that. So when in the boardroom is the chairman, the CEO, and the rest of.
At what point are you a wife?
The minute you get to that inside that door, you become now the wife.
Na kila maamuzi wanayoyafanya hufichua mengi kuhusu utu wao na uongozi wao.
We see God blessing us, and we now realize the power of giving also has to be rewarded back.
Kupitia kipindi Mfahamu Kiongozi, tunakuletea mahojiano ya kusisimua na uchambuzi wa kina kuhusu viongozi wetu.
Pick your core business as the bigger stones. Put them in your diary first. Give priority the bigger things.
Usikose kila Alhamis saa 1:30 jioni.
In a world where challenges are as common as opportunities, there are those who dare to defy the odds. They are
All right, welcome back. You're still watching Morning Cafe on TV47 with me, Fred Indimuli. We now want to discuss the trending topic. And a quick look at the trends. Reject Finance Bill 2024, still top trend on X. Occupy Parliament is the second trending topic. Gen Z is the third. Free Hanifa, Occupy Mombasa, and Ruto must go. These are just some of the trending topics on X. And a quick look at our dailies, Ruto beats retreat. Very interesting photos of what happened yesterday. And we're still in studio with Hezbo Nowila and Titus Lote. And Pamela Odhiambo is joining us via video link. Let's now focus on this. And the biggest discussion has been the new face of protests. It's unlike what we've seen before. The younger protesters, without them necessarily being marshaled from a political standpoint. And probably this is what is starkly different from previous demonstrations that were more aligned to the political leanings of this nation. And Pamela, let's start from there. The rise of the Gen Z, as described on the front page of the Daily Nation. Did you see anything new from your perspective about this new way of protesting and the new kind of protester in Kenya?
Thank you very much, Indimuli. I think, yes, I saw something new. I saw young people. I saw people who did not identify themselves as any political wing of the country or any party, but they called themselves those Kenyans who are feeling oppressed by the tax. And as for me, I am thinking it is not really news to me per se. Why? Because some time back, as I meditated and looked at things taking place in Kenya, I remember, I don't know whether to call it a prophecy or foretelling, that after the president who launched the new constitution, the former president Kibaki, I foresaw this coming, and I was saying, I think I've said it in some media houses here and there, that whoever would want to lead Kenyans after Kibaki would have to be very, very careful of being able to cope with the changing trends of the knowledgeable young Kenyans who are interested in how they are being managed and governed and ruled. And so I spoke it and I said, it is no longer going to be business as usual, because during the reign of the former presidents, that is President Senior Kenyatta and even President Daniel Moi, many Kenyans were not sure whether they knew what leadership and especially governance of the resources of their politics and all this was all about. They were only waiting for what the president said, and that is what became the law. But after Kibaki, the generation has changed. And so yesterday, to me, I think I saw a fulfillment of that foretelling that Kenyans have become more aware, and Kenyans want to actively be part of a decision that is affecting them, whether small or big. And in this case, the finances, which are not only scarce this time round, but almost unavailable to majority of Kenyans. So I think this Gen Z has come up, and it is going to be like this throughout. And therefore, that's why this morning, I think the special message I may have for all of us is that we have to be very, very sensitive to the communication and the voices of the people that we rule and govern.
Okay. Thank you, Pamela. Bonalute, we're looking at Gen Z, if we could stay with that. A generation that feels totally delinked from the political class. They're not looking at the political class as for point of leadership towards any of these conversations. That in itself is an indication of a total change in the approach we're taking as a generation.
Well, thank you. I think the first thing that we need to appreciate is the power of the media. Unlike the previous demonstration, this demonstration we saw yesterday for the Gen Z is a demonstration that was organized through the social media. And I think every Gen Z now has got a phone, and people can be able to organize themselves. So I think the departure that we're seeing is very encouraging because our Constitution, Article number 37, allow people to picket as long as they are very peaceful. And I want to appreciate the Gen Z demonstration yesterday. I actually saw it from where I was. There were no breaking of shops. There were no hitting of cars. There were no beating and picketing and mugging of pedestrians. So these people were just moving from one part of the streets to the other one. And you know, that is constantly, completely about Article number 37 of the Constitution, which says that you are allowed to express your opinion in the streets as long as you are not armed, as long as you are not becoming disorderly. And for me, I think Gen Z yesterday showed a very different way of demonstration. They mobilized themselves, first of all, through social media. They were very peaceful demonstrators. I actually was sitting in a very high, tall building, and I did not hear anybody who reported that the shop was destroyed or property were looted. These are people who were just going about their business, which for me is actually a complete demonstration of the use of Article number 37 of our Constitution. Unlike the political demonstrations where we've actually seen after the end of the day, we find a lot of distractions, which is completely out of Article number 37. So for me, I'll say, first of all, the demonstrations were legal yesterday, and I want to appreciate the police because we saw Babu Owino went to the police station and was able to secure release of these people, which again talks about a government that is able to respect the provision of the Constitution, because the government realized that, okay, well, they were mopping them out of street, but at the evening, they were allowed to go home because, one, they did not break any law. Two, about this thing, is the fact that these are young people. As we grow economically, as we grow as a nation, we need to appreciate the fact that 10 million Kenyans are out of universities and colleges and they are not employed. The reason why you find that most of the demonstrators yesterday were young people and they were out there because now there's nothing else they can do, and employment in this country has increased. And so the fact that then we have many youth people who do not have anything to do, we expect to see them on the streets. And as we continue to grow in terms of our population, as unemployment continues to grow, if the government does not do anything, then we will see more of these people coming to the streets to demonstrate. One thing I will need to appreciate is the fact that they were able to mobilize themselves in the media. I do not expect demonstrations to be there today, because if you listen to what all the demonstrators said yesterday, they said we are demonstrating because the finance bill is increasing the cost of bread, because the finance bill is increasing the cost of living. But contrary to what they were saying yesterday, the Kenya Kwanza government and the finance committee had actually dropped everything that they were complaining about. So if we see demonstrations today on the streets, then we'll be talking about a different demonstration, but not about the finance bill.
And we'll come discuss the issue of the government pullback on that one, because the amendments are yet to take effect until it is substantively discussed on the floor of the House. But Bwana Hesbon, do you feel that we are correct in referring to these demonstrations yesterday as a purely Gen Z affair?
Well, I think we are. To a large extent, we are correct to say that this was a purely Gen Z affair, for the simple reason that the people we saw in the streets were Gen Zs. I know there are doubts on did they self-mobilize themselves, were there political figures, or were there individuals who were behind the scenes but pulling the strings. But that is neither here nor there, because the fact that Gen Zs were on the streets could be a question of they went under their own volition. And then number two, if they were mobilized by someone, the fact that they were willing to be mobilized and went and articulated issues is another concern. That
it's not the kind of generation that can be headed in one direction.
It's not the kind of generation that can be headed in a direction. And you know, for me, this is not a shocker, because I think I've always said that, you know, people think that Gen Zs are aloof, they're far withdrawn from what is happening, they're not in touch with the reality. But from a study that we did, you know, and it was launched by the Cabinet Secretary for ICT, you know, Honorable Eliud Owalo last year in March at Aga Khan University, we did a study on the millennials and Gen Z's media consumption habit. And the first bit of that study, we essentially focused on who these Gen Zs are. Now, two things that were very interesting was the fact that most of these young people actually consume current affairs news. Now, where they consume might be, you know, unconventional, because they don't consume the traditional appointment, you know, kind of media like TV, but they still have that TV on different other platforms. So they know what is going on. And then the second thing that we realized from that study, which I tie to what was happening, is the fact that these young people have ambitions. And two critical things that emerged is that they're thinking about accumulating wealth, and then they're also thinking about their financial security. And most of them, in terms of media consumption, we're talking about the media is not giving them content that would help them, you know, accumulate wealth or understand how to accumulate wealth and address, you know, their financial security issues. Now, when you look at all these ambitions that they have, because what we were trying to define was who is this young Kenyan, against the backdrop of what is happening today, you know, Mheshimiwa has talked about almost 10 million Kenyans who are out of university. I think these are the 10 million Kenyans who get into the job market, and the first thing they are confronted with is you have a paycheck of 50,000, but because of the cumulative taxes that you have, you end up with around 24, 25,000 at home. That in itself raises a number of questions, because now they're in the job market, but then things are not as rosy as they thought. Now, another thing that you get to understand is that they're getting into a socioeconomic and political dispensation that is not as rosy as what they expected, you know. So these are guys who are fairly and easily susceptible to come to the streets and speak to the issues. Because if you look at the way the government is trying to expand the tax bracket, it is essentially going for salaried employees and going for other avenues, the novel avenues where people are making money, including the digital platform. But this is where a majority of them are. They are either new into the employment, in which case they are confronted with taxes that are almost half of what they're earning, and then they're on the digital platform where they're trying to experiment with revenue generation, and then they realize that, you know, they have a regime that is also coming for that. So for me, this is not a shocker. The fact that they came out is basically a function of the frustrations that they are confronted with today, with regards to, you know, what they're looking at in terms of accumulation of wealth and securing their financial future. And then the second thing is the fact that they have access to information. We might think that we have a monopoly of information because we consume the legacy media, but I think Gen Zs have enough information that is broken down into aspects that are easily understandable. They may not read the entire finance bill, but at least
they have the highlights.
TikTok, yes, on TikTok, on these media platforms where they have very small bites of consumable content, they interact a lot more in-depthly with elements that are very critical that probably push them into the streets.
And Pamela, this calls on the state to even change its approach in dealing with this generation. Just clamping down on demonstrations like the governments and successive regimes have done will not necessarily work with this generation. They have a different way of mobilizing, don't you think?
They have a serious different way of mobilizing. Like I think for the almost past 3 weeks or 1 month, the media, the social media, WhatsApp groups and Facebook and all that have been awash with calls to reject the bill and even plan to recall MPs, and somebody even went ahead and got the MPs, all of them, and per region and with their phone numbers, and strategically dispatched them to the said regions, and they were encouraging the young people and everybody to call their MPs and tell them you are not going to pass this bill, and so you look at that kind of mobilization. It is true their method of mobilization is apparently huge and unstoppable. And even if you looked at some of the things they were talking about, talking points as to why they are rejecting this bill, it concurs a lot with what Mr. Wheeler there is talking about. These people are feeling hopeless. They feel their future is threatened. They feel the society and the ruling class is not giving them a chance also to contribute. They feel decisions are being made without consulting them. And yet, they are the majority as we talk here today. So that form of mobilization is something that can engulf the entire country within minutes. Somebody has generated some content, it has been spread out the whole country, and I think it is something to appreciate, and it is something that the older generation needs to come to terms with, and that's why I was saying leading this particular group is not going to be a walk in the park, because before you know it, they have already known it. And they spend a lot of time on that social media, and they get every information, bad or good, as it comes. And so if you are still thinking you are sleeping, waiting to go and make a decision tomorrow, they have already known, and they have already mobilized themselves. They have already talked to each other. They have already decided on what they are going to do. And therefore, it is important that in all our manner of doing things as older generation, we factor in this Gen Z, as we are calling it, and we are not going to take them for granted, because I said earlier, people thought they don't know, and people thought they are not even interested in the undertakings. But no, they are very interested, because they have realized their future actually depends on what we are doing today. Okay. So if that future seems oblique, like the financial situation that we are operating in currently, and their joblessness, and even those who have jobs, my colleague has said it well, they finally go home with 20,000, which cannot pay their rent, it cannot pay their water, it cannot buy them food, then they are just frustrated. So okay. That frustration is what is now compelling these young Kenyans to come out. Even if no political leader or any significant government leader talk to them, they would just come out, because that is what they are going through.
Okay, and Bwana Lote, I'm sure you may have been on the other end of, on the receiving end of this kind of communication. The fact that most of your numbers and the numbers of your colleagues were actually posted online, and people had access and they could send you messages and calls. This is very different, and we have seen even some concerns raised during that Kenya Kwanza parliamentary group meeting yesterday, that if you continue the same way you're continuing without paying close attention to what's happening, then it could actually end up costing Kenya Kwanza politically.
Well, first of all, I want to appreciate the fact that Kenyans were able to engage leaders, and I think the president said that yesterday. He said, for the first time, we are having to see government engaging citizens. government, we've got 3 arms of government. So parliament is one of them. And so parliamentarians received a lot of information from citizens. Very anonymous people. You get up to 3,000 messages into your phone. It actually jams your phone, which for me is very good, because at least they, first of all, realize that these are the people that will either pass or not pass the finance bill. 2, before I even say something, Indimuli, I want us to appreciate this government, because this government has given Gen Z enough space to be able to express themselves. This thing cannot happen in a country like Uganda. It cannot happen. You cannot. You've actually seen the social media space closed in many of these countries, including Uganda. You close it, so these people just get a blackout. They cannot be able to communicate to each other. So let's appreciate the government that they are even giving the Gen Z and everybody space to be able to express themselves. It is important. And we will continue asking government not to be intimidated by what the citizens are doing and not to close our space. We've seen that in Korea. We've seen that in most of the Mid-East countries where they actually just give a blackout to the internet. We've seen that in Ethiopia, when government realizes that this is an avenue where people can mobilize. So I will want to appreciate the government for accepting to allow our internet. In fact, the government has even given free Wi-Fi. You've seen the Minister for Information, Banowalo, has gone everywhere, and a lot of free Wi-Fis are given. And the government is the very same government has actually given this infrastructure for the youth to be able to have online jobs. Most of those youth that are actually demonstrating yesterday, one of the factors that could have actually also allowed them to come to our demonstration is because they are now doing online jobs, and they could get some monies to get transport to come to a mobilized place. So to some extent, I can say the government has aided for this, facilitated for these young people to mobilize themselves, not closing the space, allowing for the internet infrastructure, and also giving them jobs that they can mobilize themselves. So in a way, it is very good, because our article number 37 was not just written in vain. It was written to say that people are allowed to picket. And so first, the government is given the infrastructure. 2, the government has allowed these people to demonstrate. For me, is a very positive, a departure from the past, where you see demonstrators are very peaceful, things are not broken. For me, I take that very positively. 2, I was on the receiving end from the public, and they're expressing their concerns about the finance bill. But I think today, like what I said before, today I do not expect them to be on the streets, because whatever they wanted us to address has been addressed. This is something that now they need to go to the social media and say, friends, and ladies and gentlemen, the things that we thought was our grievances has been addressed by the finance bill, which will be coming in for discussions today and tomorrow.
But has it been addressed?
Well, it has been addressed substantively. It has been addressed substantively. First of all, Fred, I'll wish to actually state that Kenyans overreacted for something that was not supposed, they were not supposed to be to react about. One, the process of finance bill, if I can just talk from a layman's language, is that the government give aspirations, the government give proposals of what they want to do so that they can get the taxes. And then the public gives counter proposal, after which then the two are supposed to be reconciled, to be brought to the House for discussion. The fact that the government gave their proposal on all the grievances that people were now complaining about did not mean that that is what was going to pass. We needed to, if Kenyans were genuine to themselves, we needed first of all to have actually seen that the government ignored the voices of the people. Still, public participation is still going on even now. People have given their memorandums, people have given their grievances, people have given their views.
Don't you think that concerns coming from how Parliament conducted itself last year with the passing of the finance bill,
even last year,
that's where the Kenyans are coming from.
Fred, to be sincere to ourselves, even last year, the government listened to the people. If I can give one specific example, the housing levy, that was a very hot potato then. And the housing levy was supposed to be a levy of 3% that was taken from everybody. But out of the public participation, it was turned down to be a tax, because people said, we better just continue with our tax regime and then reduce it to 1.5. Is it what is it now? Yes. people were listened to and the government was able to step down and came to what people did. So it was not a draconian, dictatorial kind of a finance bill even last year. So it will be wrong for us to refer to last year as a dictatorial passing of the finance bill.
But there's heightened realization, and even a poll by Infotrack showed that this Gen Z, even if you say they just understand the highlights, there's a heightened comprehension level about what exactly is happening. This is not a generation that will sit back and see parliamentarians play around with their psychology and tell you one thing and hide other cards under the table. We saw a number of legislators come out much later to say that they did not even scrutinize the entire Finance Act of 2023 properly. There's a lack of confidence in the kind of scrutiny that parliamentarians give to this kind of discussions. The communication to this generation about how the process has been conducted has to be different going forward.
I mean, it has to be different, and the reason is very simple. That this is a generation that is at the cutting edge of what they decide to focus on. Now that they've decided that they're going to focus on the finance bill, I'm pretty sure that they are actually at the cutting edge. They have socialized with it more than most of the members of parliament. And we've seen in the public domain, a few members of parliament, and I would say that a few instances of senators who probably don't, a finance bill originates from the National Assembly, who probably, by virtue of being leaders, should actually socialize with it, but have demonstrated utter lack of understanding of the clauses in the bill. But let me say this. Discourse is extremely good. And when you talk about the president saying that for once people are talking about the finance bill in this country, and majority of these people are talking about it and are blowing it, in the public domain, are young people, we need to ask ourselves, within what context are they talking about it? They are talking about it within the context of a very punitive regime. And we should not celebrate the fact, Kenya Kwanza should not celebrate the fact that it is during their time that people have come to an understanding of what the finance bill is. It is actually during their time that people are questioning the motive for most of this, because a finance bill is basically a revenue collection bill. It is going to collect money for the government, And the fact that most of the things that people are aggrieved on are associated with Kenya Kwanza, and specifically the president. He has said that he is okay, people calling him names. But I don't think it is okay, because it debases the discourse. It debases the discourse because the discourse should be on the role of parliament. What Kenya Kwanza has done is that they've made these things, look like they are giving concessions. No, the finance committee has members of parliament from both the majority and the minority. And in fact, the more they keep owning up and saying that we are the ones who are giving this reprieve, the more they look bad. And
they
for
carry
the
all the
reason,
burden.
Yeah, they carry the burden. And for the simple reason, Mheshimiwa here is saying that last year they gave a reprieve by moving from 3% to 1.5%, which is the reason why people are very cautious of what they would do in the second and the third reading of this bill. Because things are not settled yet. Things are not settled. We don't know what will happen. Last year, the public conversations around the bill as was proposed were public conversations around the housing levy, which was 3%. Now, whatever the public gave the committee decided that we are not going to give, we are not going to do a 3%, we'll do 1.5, which is kind of cheeky because that 1.5 became a tax. Remember, the discourse was on a levy. And when we were discussing that levy, people like me were thinking, well, we will contribute, my employer will contribute. At the end of the day, if I don't get a house, I will get my money. Now, we are not getting that money, but we are taxed 1.5%. Which one is better? The 3% where I know that after some time I'll either get a house or my money was even much better than 1.5%, which goes to a slush fund somewhere, And I think they became very innovative after the court ruling because they went back and provided a framework, for continuing the housing levy. So we cannot rest easy today and say that because Kenya Kwanza came out, and read a document that originated from a parliamentary committee and say that we gave Kenyans concessions and things, are now settled. We cannot rest easy because this thing is still going to parliament. Ask yourself, if they intended to raise 302 billion to meet a budget of 3 0.99 trillion with a deficit of 597 billion, which they are going to, which, I mean, the projection is they'll get through loans and grants. The question is, with all those concessions, you know, how does this balance out? What happens? Where are they going to get the rest of the money?
As a Gen Z would say, the math is not mathing.
It's not mathing.
Okay.
So this is not over yet.
Let's listen to the chairperson of the National Assembly Committee on Finance and National Planning, as he spoke yesterday at State House and listed some of the concessions the committee had considered.
We have listened to the view of Kenyans, and we are all in agreement that there are two things that we must do. One of them is that we need to protect Kenyans from increased cost of living, and therefore the proposed 16% VAT on bread has been dropped. To support, again, on reducing the cost of living, we are doing something about vegetable oil so that we do not make it expensive for Kenyans. Transfer of mobile services is a key concern to many Kenyans, and therefore, again, we have proposed that we do not have any increase on taxation or mobile phone transfer.
Yes, Kuria Kimani, the chairperson of the National Assembly Committee on Finance and National Planning, speaking at State House, Nairobi, after the Kenya Kwanza Parliamentary Group. He is the chairman of a joint committee of parliament, which encompasses both the minority and majority members. But there you spoke, and as you said, the burden will go to Kenya Kwanza because he spoke like a Kenya Kwanza MP. But let's now listen to the response by the leader of minority in the National Assembly, Opiyo Wandayi, and what he had to say about this.
Motor vehicle tax was silly and outrageous from the start. The evil mind that conceived it was simply testing the resolve and the emotions of Kenyans. It takes a bad government to govern through mind games, and Kenya Kwanza is one such government. We demand that the export promotion levy of 10% on clinkers for manufacture of cement is a tool for stagnation. It is meant to stifle competition in a particular sector with a view to protecting a particular investor in a specific sector. As a country, we will be shooting ourselves in the foot if we were to make laws just to protect one business person.
Namaanisha wameweka wananchi wa Kenya kama watoto na watu wajinga ambao hawana mwelekeo.
But you are working for one person with his friends. Because 10% of Kenyan population is the only one enjoying. And that is why if they increase anything, they don't feel it. It is the real Mwananchi, Wanjiku, is the one who understands what they are going through.
All right, and on page 6 of the Standard, and I'm looking at a small piece of story talking about pain at the pump. Fuel prices set to go up as lawmakers plan to raise levy, and a recommendation by the National Assembly Committee on Finance and National Planning to increase the road maintenance levy on fuel is set to push domestic prices to new highs. The committee yesterday noted that revenues from the 18 shilling per litre levy have fallen in the current fiscal year due to the elevated costs and a weak shilling, and the proposal going forward is that this will be increased to 25 shillings a litre. So definitely there has to be a balance. All this concessions must account for something. Pamela, the conversation is still not over, despite the concessions made by the parliamentary committee. And while Kenya Kwanza may be quick to try and take credit for some of this, it is still up to Parliament to discuss and still find a balance.
Yes, Indimuli, sorry, when you brought forth the leaders to repeat what they said yesterday, I was not able to hear it. But I think I've read a bit of what both sides said. And just coming to your question, yes, it is not over until it is over. Why? Because much as we have listed those things that have been deleted, like the VAT and the exercise duties on bread and all those. But a simple mind tells me that so long as there are any increments on fuel and all the other petroleum products, which are the main sponsor of all forms of production of goods and services in this country, then I wonder whether all those things that have been listed to be pulled down will ever be down, because the fuel levy definitely moving from 18 to 25, that is an increment of a whole 7 shillings or thereabout. And where it is now, you remember there was a time fuel had gone very much up, and then at some stage Kenyans were told we have taken it down. But then that levy will again bring it up, because the final cost or price will actually go to the consumer. So you can't expect somebody to sell you the bread cheaply when their process of either getting the unga and getting the oil and getting everything done is being pushed up courtesy of the fuel that affects directly the transportation costs and production costs. I think there is a lot that is needs to go on, and the MPs need to be very sober, and they need to do that balancing, but so that by the end of the day, what the government has done by calling out some of those contentious clauses that on the taxation would be a real thing. So celebrating this early will not help us much, because we still, and I believe the Gen Z will not stop. They will still continue combing that bill and see, because the truth of the matter, when this balancing has to be achieved, the proponents of the bill will still look for other pockets where these monies can be fixed, so that by the end of the day, the revenue that was to be raised, intended to be raised, is raised. Otherwise, if stopping to raise those revenues, it would also mean that there are some other planned activities which must be removed from that budget. And so that balancing has to be done, and the MPs must come to the realization that they are not going to carry this generation just like that. They are not going to take them for granted. So the best thing to do is to appreciate, as my friend Lotte has said, that the government has done something, has allowed that conversation to go on, has allowed that picketing to go on. But you see, the truth of the matter is that these complaints and these voices of, this is too much, this is not right, this is not right, started much earlier. It didn't have to come to this end. And that's why I keep saying that leaders, we need to learn. When we hear voices and there are voices that have got some genuine concerns, we need to stop right there and look at them and move forward when we have taken things into consideration. We don't have to wait until people go picketing so that we know it is serious. I think this is something that we have ever done in Kenya, that the only language that sometimes our government want to claim to understand is that language of force, when people have to push themselves to the bitter wall so that something is done remedial about the situation. I think there is a lot that still needs to be done. We appreciate the government, and I think it is a good thing that discussions are allowed to go on social media, and that same social media can actually be used to quicken the conversation between the government and the citizen, so that we don't come to a point where now we are going to the streets and the police have to come out and the tear gas has to be thrown for things to happen in our country.
Okay, thank you, Pamela. And Lotte, yes, these measures were intended to raise over 300 billion shillings in revenue. Removing them will definitely impact revenue collection. And it is now incumbent on the National Assembly to provide that balance. Is it a reduction in the expenditure of the government, or how else can members of parliament strike a balance?
Well, first of all, I want to appreciate the fact that you've noted very clearly that we need to have a balanced budget. As a country, we've never had a balanced budget since. This year, with the measures that were in place, we were supposed to reduce our deficit to GDP by up to 3.3%. It came down from 9.7%. Last year we were at 5.7%. Now we're going to 3.3%. if we continue, if Kenyans become patriotic enough to be able to raise taxes for themselves, then in 2-3 years, we will definitely have a balanced budget where we are not supposed to go and look for monies to be able to plug into our budgets. But now, because if you're trying to reduce that deficit, it basically means that we go into people's pockets to be able to contribute to our economy. One thing that I want to tell Kenyans is every Kenyan wants development. If you go anywhere as a member of parliament or senator or whoever, they will ask you for a road, they will ask you for electricity, they will ask you for water. Where do we get this money from? We have to get this money, this particular time, from ourselves. We need to also to appreciate the fact that all the monies that we are collecting, most of these monies are actually going to pay foreign interest, not even foreign debts, foreign interests. For example, if the budget that we've got now, the 4.003469 trillion, a trillion of it goes into paying interests for loans that we took before. That basically means for every 100 shillings that we collect, 61 shillings goes into pay for foreign interest. That basically means we are actually collecting to build other economies. And if we continue saying that we are not going to collect revenues from Kenyans, that every time there is a proposal to collect revenue from Kenya, we go to the streets, what government can simply do, and that's what President Ruto can do, can just decide to say, it's fine, I want to please Kenyans, just like the previous regime did, and go and collect loans from abroad and ensure that Kenyans are enjoying life for now, only to be paid in the future. So transferring this pain to the future government is not the right thing to do. We need to have a president that then say, it is time for us to bite the bullet, it is time for us to pay for ourselves. So I will say this for benefits of every Kenyan, that we must reach a point where we make a decision. Loans are there, foreign loans are there, but look at how much we spend.
Are you saying that with these concessions made, we'll be forced to borrow more? Or is there any other
basically
possible,
what I'm saying
is there any other possible solution to this?
If Kenyans say that they are not going to pay, because now they're saying it is punitive, and they go to the street and say, reject Finance Bill 2024. It basically tells you, Kenyans have said, please, can you finance our budgets? Can you finance our government, running of our government through a foreign loan?
Is there a possibility that we could probably cut down on some of the government
yes,
budget estimates?
We will look at that. I think for me, I will actually say, let's look at the expenditure bit. But let us not try to hide our heads into the sun like an ostrich to say that we are not going to collect revenues from ourselves. Okay. We need to collect revenues from ourselves. Another thing that I need to say is let us appreciate the fact that even last year when people demonstrated about the Finance Bill 2023, that Finance Bill has transformed a lot of things in this country. The last year, if you look at, for example, the value of the shilling to the dollar or all other currencies, we were at the very bad part where the shilling was actually dropping. But now, by yesterday, the shilling to a dollar is 127 shillings. You will not imagine that it is because of the fiscal policies that we had, because of the revenue measures that we decided and say, let us do this, let us cut importation, let us try to encourage local manufacturing. And when we did that, our shilling started to appreciate because not a lot of our currencies were going there to buy things from outside. Okay. Yes, when people were demonstrating last year, they thought they were being punished. But if you see at the fiscal environment of Kenya now, it is very different. The cost of living has dropped. Inflation last year was 9.7. Inflation now has come down to around 5.2. It is actually improved. If we look again at our performance of our economy was performing at 5.7%, which is the 27th fastest growing economy in the world. So sometimes the things that we think makes us pain, the things that drives us to the street, could be the things that are going to save this country in the future. So I'll appeal on all Kenyans. We need to collect revenue. There is no way in which we can run our country with foreign loans. And so what the members of parliament can do...
Are these concessions sustainable?
What the members of parliament can do, just so that I come to that, is to look at other avenues. And that's the reason why you find actually the chairman of budget committee yesterday, finance committee said yesterday, because Kenyans have said we cannot collect revenues on Y, X, and Z, we will allow, because that will definitely push up the cost of living a little bit. Now we will go into the KRB to increase a little bit so that we can be able to get, because at the end of it all, we've presented our budgets for this financial year. And those budgets are 4-point-something trillion. For the first time we've crossed the 4 trillion. On this other side, Kenyans were very happy when this was presented because they say, oh, we're going to get electricity, we're going to get water. On this other side, they have presented how they're supposed to raise this money, and Kenyans are saying no. And because this one has been approved, we need to look at other ways of getting this revenue. One, we also need to appreciate the fact that last year, the cost of fuel was very high. And the government, since November, has been dropping every month. EPRA has been doing, for the last 4, 5, 6 months, the EPRA has been dropping the cost of fuel. By this month, was actually dropped by 6 shillings. You can, last 3 days ago. So that diesel, for example, in last year in November, was actually trading at 217 per litre. Diesel now, today, is trading at 179, a complete 35, close to 35 shillings drop. So we will not be paying so much if we increase a little bit of KRB so that we still plug into the deficits. Otherwise, then we are going back to the levels where we were happy, we are living as a happy nation, but to pay in future. Okay. So Kenyans need to know.
But many argue that even a 4 trillion shilling budget is a bit too ambitious for a country in dire straits. That we look at government and its spending habits, and you, even as a common mwananchi, can point out that if you tighten your belt, as we've been told, live within your means, that probably there could be some substantial savings. But we're not seeing that kind of approach. The other suggestion is that even these concessions, if we may call them that, are simply to dupe the mwananchi. Yet we expect that with this Gen Z we saw yesterday, there'll be a continuous scrutiny of whatever other measure this administration picks. This debate is definitely not over, but there must be other options apart from just cutting down or collecting more revenue.
Well, I think, first of all, the bulk of the concessions are actually things that Kenyans need to appreciate. A number of them have absolutely nothing to do with the pressure from Kenyans, as they do have a lot to do with the pressure from most of the big organizations that were going to be affected, especially by something like the eco-levy, something like the motor vehicle insurance. Those ones were going to have fairly big ripple effect, industrial ripple effect, like the insurance industry was going to sort of just tank because of that aspect of it collecting for the government. I mean, a number of guys were going to either scale down, stop using their motor vehicles, and I think the insurance industry as a whole was going to suffer the consequences. And the bigger picture was, even the guys who are employed in these industries that are going to suffer are also consumers, in which case the local traders, the Mamaboga's level of traders, were going to suffer the consequences of the dearth of return clients. And I think that's the bigger picture that was seen. The ripple effect was going essentially to even shrink the tax base. So to a large extent, you'd say that the concessions that have been made are actually making sense. The elephant in the room is now the balance between the concessions that are made, because they'll definitely, Parliament will have to go somewhere and look at how to bridge that. But then it has to be a balance between how do we bridge these concessions, get more revenue to bridge that gap, but also speak to the executive on expenditure. Because I think the biggest issue here is if you want to live within our means, and I agree with Mheshimiwa here, that there's a sense in which our tax is supposed to fund, to a large extent, our budget, so that we cut down on foreign debts and local debts. Because foreign debts, the interests are very high. Local debts, when the government become a player in the local, facilities industry, then it makes the cost of acquiring loans extremely high for the local players, and the ripple effect is not positive. So that balance, you cannot talk about certain elements that they've put in place, like reduce the funding to the social protection by cutting down on the bureaucracy and what goes into bureaucracies, but then you increase the funding to offices, like State House, the Office of the Deputy President. So there's a lot of expenditure conversation that we are afraid of having, and we are afraid of having because we are being given tidbits of concessions to dupe us, to believe that, this is a government that is listening. I think the government needs to listen and listen more and listen comprehensively. When people complain about taxes, you don't just address taxes and forget to address the expenditure, because the biggest issue is expenditure, cut down on corruption. If those issues are tightened, I think we won't have all these problems of we have to live within our means, because living within our means has to start with how are we spending, and how judicious are we in dispensing national resources that are collected through the tax. But let me just say this, to a large extent, there are certain things that you're saying, oh, this government has done this government has done this. I mean, there's nothing much that the government has done about allowing people to picket and demonstrate. We did that to ourselves in 2010, when we gave ourselves the 2010 Constitution, which has a very expansive Chapter 4 with the Bill of Rights. So if the government is doing what...
argues that the state has provided free Wi-Fi and...
I was in Migori over the weekend. And I was actually struggling to file my article, which runs on Monday. So I mean, Kenya is doing fairly well in terms of internet penetration, and we were doing well even before this government. So there are certain things that we should not compliment ourselves for having, because those are the bare minimums that we expect for a country whose budget is a cumulative total of 3 countries in East Africa. So we cannot start celebrating small things. We need to be doing big things. In fact, in most countries that are developed, where the tax regimes are very high, if you look at their history, they started by attracting investors who built industries and created jobs in these countries with a very low tax regime. And they've reached a point where they can confidently increase the taxes to the corporates, to the manufacturing sector. Why? Simply because there is a lot that has already come in that you're not seeking to attract. You're basically seeking to remain competitive. I don't think we are there yet. But lastly, let me just say this. Since this regime came to power, there are a number of things that the political class, not that just this regime, need to be very cautious of, in light of what happened yesterday. One, in most societies where there's a bloated middle class, and in Kenya we have a pseudo middle class, the elites, the economic and political elites are safe simply because a bloated middle class basically means that there are so many people who believe that they are just one step to be at the top, and therefore they'll quell any sort of disruption. But what we are seeing at the moment is that almost many Kenyans who thought that they were in the middle class are being pushed down, in which case they are being pushed to a base where they become disruptors. Then number two, when in the last campaign, you realize that religion was actually appropriated, as part of the political discourse. And you saw religious organizations actively involved and mobilizing for political cause. And a lot of them were actually identifying with the current regime. But that appropriation of religion has ended up in post-victory disillusionment. So the religious leaders are out. Then number two is education. Education gives the illusion that if I go to school well, I'll become one of the best journalists, and I will ascend to the top. But then it saves the elites, because even if you become one of the top journalists, you'll be employed by the top media owner, Now, if you look at these three, let me leave security out, because security is always there. If you look at these three, they're the main reasons why societies are always safe and stable. But appropriation of religion has led into disillusionment. Education, capitation to education is no longer sustainable. Most schools are struggling. And then after education, life is no longer rosy the way it was, You leave campus, you come here, things are not as rosy as you expected. And then there's a tax regime that is, fairly, discomforting. And then number three, you have the media. The media has also been disenfranchised. We know the media, Mheshimiwa here is talking about the 2023 finance bill, but then the consequences of that 2023 finance bill is a double-edged sword. We've seen companies that have gone out under, we've seen entities that are struggling, as much as there is some element of success. So if you look at all these things that make the society stable, they're coming down crashing. The illusion of education will give me a better life is coming down crashing. The appropriation of religion has not worked. Religion is now against the establishment. And then you look at the mass media, predominantly out. And that tells you that such demonstrations are likely to happen. They will not be against this regime. They will just be against an establishment that is not responsive to the realities of the struggles of the common mwananchi.
Pamela, final word on this, even as you comment on whether or not the conversation should move from the finance bill to probably the expenditure by government.
Thank you very much. I believe what I'm about to say is not going to be final, because earlier on I had alluded that this conversation might have to continue and continue longer than we expect. And yes, I concur that at this point, just calling out sections of that bill that needs to be deleted or removed, and we are not told, or somebody does not address how what they were supposed to raise is going to be counterbalanced, then it is half information that is not going to settle whatever Kenyans are worried about. Having said that, then we, yes, need to move to the expenditure. And for me, I will not just talk about the expenditure or concerning the government. Of course, we know the government is the largest spender of the revenues so collected by all Kenyans. But I want to put it this way. All of us Kenyans, we need to come to terms with our economic status, right from the individual level, family level, and whatever other organizational level, and then to the government level. Because the truth is, even when we are talking of 3.9 or 4, rounded off to the nearest whole number, 4 trillion as a budget, and a budget which we know we are struggling to raise. And you know, with all the humility, our president at some stage talked very boldly that made me very happy. And I think many Kenyans were happy. And he said, we have got to stop borrowing and living on debt. And with that, I think the expectations of many of us, including the Gen Z, was that borrowing of all sorts was actually going to stop, to the extent that when we talk about the expenditure, then my call would be, let us sincerely prioritize what we are spending on and why, and then spend only what we have. And this should be clearly explained and communicated to Kenyans. There is no need of telling Kenyans that we are all going to get electricity this year when we know the money that we have can only do maybe electricity in one county. So we can actually adopt a system where we do these things bit by bit, according to what we are able to raise, and spend much of that money, as our brother Lote has highlighted, and I think many of the leaders have alluded to this before. Even myself, I'm aware of these debts that have been taken, not only even during the last regime, but some of them have been moving from regime to regime and without complete payment. And therefore, it is important that we support, and we supported the idea that let our president put down his foot and the government officers to make sure that these bills, the foreign debts, are actually paid. Because now, if we are only still talking about paying the interest, when will we ever start paying the principal? And
thank you, Pamela.
That is coupled with the fact that if we say we are cutting down on unnecessary expenditures like travels and like what, then let the country see, let the citizens feel that actually these billions that we are told is spent on traveling and all this are actually stopped, so that we know we are doing what we say. And
thank you.
We all know we have to raise the revenue to meet our budget.
Thank you so much, Pamela, for that. I'll give you about 30 seconds only for your parting shot. We are out of time. We'll start with you, Bwana Owila.
I think basically what we are seeing is a very interesting socio-political dispensation where discourse is emerging as leading, the conversations and what our leaders do.
Okay.
My take for Gen Z is very simple. There's no need for going to the street for the purposes of, for the sake of going to the street. They must be anchored on substantive issues and articulate those issues.
Okay.
There's no reason why people should go to the street to discuss finance bill and then keep shouting Ruto must go. I mean, finance bill and the president are two separate things. Finance bill is about revenue collection. We need to focus on discourse and discourse that is constructive.
Okay. Finally, Bwana Lute, 30 seconds.
Well, 30 seconds, I think it's important that yesterday there was a communication that to the effect that all the contentious clauses of the Finance Bill 2024 was actually waived. And so I do not expect the Gen Z or anybody coming to the street today, because again, that will not be logical, because the reason why they went to the street was because of the contentious clauses.
Okay.
The last one actually to say, if you want to grow rich, collect more and spend less. Okay. That's what I'll tell to the government. And to the people of Kenya, let's collect. Let us not be afraid of collecting. Let us not be afraid of our finance bills every year, because we need to be independent. Kibaki said, kulipa ushuru ni kujitegemea, and we actually saw the expansion of the economy then. Even this time, it's not changed. Let us collect more, but let the government spend less.
Okay. Collect more, but spend less. I think that's a perfect way to end this conversation. Thank you so much, Titus Lote, MP Kachiliba, Hesbon Owila, media and political communications expert, and Pamela Odhiambo, former woman representative in Migori County, who had joined us via video link. Thank you so much, our panelists this morning on State of the Nation, right here on Morning Cafe on TV 47. Do stand by for a lot more on this show. Of course, Relationship Wednesday, being today, something coming up later on. Why does the past matter in every relationship? Should it really matter? And later on, some cooking, Murenda and Malenge. Do expect a lot more sumptuous discussions. On our question of the day, why does the past matter? And this is about the conversation coming up right now. And you can share your sentiments even as that conversation continues. Why does the past matter in a relationship? At TV 47 News on X, TV47 Kenya on Facebook. My name is Fred Ndimuli. This is where I dock for now, but the show does continue. Good morning.
Kila kiongozi ana hadithi yake ya kipekee.
Wazazi wangu walikuwa bit strict kwa sababu mamangu mwenyewe, mimi kutoka kuzaliwa sijailala nje.
The white small one, huyo ana sniff gunpowder na risasi na bomb. Alafu huyo mwingine ni ridgeback ana sniff simba.
Even the employees knows that. So when in the boardroom is the chairman, the CEO, and the rest of.
At what point are you a wife?
The minute you get to that inside that door, you become now the wife.
Na kila maamuzi wanayoyafanya hufichua mengi kuhusu utu wao na uongozi wao.
We see God blessing us, and we now realize the power of giving also has to be rewarded back.
Kupitia kipindi Mfahamu Kiongozi, tunakuletea mahojiano ya kusisimua na uchambuzi wa kina kuhusu viongozi wetu.
Pick your core business as the bigger stones. Put them in your diary first. Give priority the bigger things.
Usikose kila Alhamis saa 1:30 jioni.
In a world where challenges are as common as opportunities, there are those who dare to defy the odds. They are the entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurship isn't just about starting a business, it's about embracing uncertainty, pushing boundaries, and turning dreams into reality.
Hata ambao ni pesa ya kusave, wallahi. Ambao mwaka ni pesa nyingi sana.
As long as you're earning something, there's always that opportunity to save. And you start with where you are.
The way we run the business is in a very unforgiving way, where every team member has to bring out their best.
So, to all the dreamers, innovators, and risk takers out there, remember, being an entrepreneur isn't just a job, it's a way of life. Join the journey. Become an entrepreneur. The Grind, Mondays at 7:30 p.m.
Here on Beyond the Limit, we celebrate the extraordinary achievements of individuals who redefine possibilities. In a journey of resilience and determination, these individuals demonstrate that limitations are merely stepping stones to greatness.
I'm Nancy Njoroge, a mother of 3. I have 2 girls and a boy who is Clinton and who is autistic.
When my heart got healed, I decided to come out to be creating CP awareness, to let other people know that there is such a condition, and people that has it is not that they are witches.
Together, let's go beyond the limit every Saturday at 8 p.m.
Welcome to The Realtor, where we take you on an exciting journey from bare land to dream home. Step 1. Finding the perfect plot. We explore location, size, and potential. Next, construction begins. Witness the foundation being laid, walls rising, and rooms taking shape. Step 3. Electricity matters. We delve into wiring, switches, and smart home tech. Step 4. From paint choices to fixtures, it's all about aesthetics. Step 5. It's time to get the right furniture. Finally, the big day. Time to move in and create memories. Join us on the journey to making homes a reality on The Realtor, Tuesdays 6:30.
Kila kiongozi ana hadithi yake ya kipekee.
Wazazi wangu walikuwa bit strict kwa sababu mamangu mwenyewe, mimi kutoka kuzaliwa sijailala nje.
The white small one, huyo ana sniff gunpowder na risasi na bomb. Alafu huyo mwingine ni ridgeback ana sniff simba.
Even the employees knows that. So when in the boardroom is the chairman, the CEO, and the rest of.
What point are you a wife?
The minute you get to that inside that door, you become now the wife.
Na kila maamuzi wanayoyafanya hufichua mengi kuhusu utu wao na uongozi wao.
We see God blessing us, and we now realize the power of giving also has to be rewarded back.
Kupitia kipindi Mfahamu Kiongozi, tunakuletea mahojiano ya kusisimua na uchambuzi wa kina kuhusu viongozi wetu.
Pick your core business as the bigger stones. Put them in your diary first. Give priority the bigger things.
Usikose kila Alhamis saa 1:30 jioni.
In a world where challenges are as common as opportunities, there are those who dare to defy the odds. They are the entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurship isn't just about starting a business, it's about embracing uncertainty, pushing boundaries, and turning dreams into reality.
Hata mbao ni pesa ya kusave. Wallahi. Mbao mwaka ni pesa nyingi sana.
As long as you're earning something, there's always that opportunity to save. And you start with where you are.
The way we run the business is in a very unforgiving way, where every team member has to bring out their best.
So, to all the dreamers, innovators, and risk takers out there, remember, being an entrepreneur isn't just a job, it's a way of life. Join the journey. Become an entrepreneur. The Grind, Mondays at 7:30 p.m.
Right, it is the 19th day of June 2024, and the cold season is here, by the way. In Nairobi, it is very, very chilly. And it is one of those days that, the Single People's Association start looking for mtu. Sijui kama I'll say I included, but then, in case you're looking for someone, does the past matter? That is a question for the day for you. And why does it matter, by the way? Why does the past matter in a relationship? Tuambie on our socials. Preferably, you can always call in live 0795 045 864. We'll be very, very glad to hear your sentiments. Ukitupigia simu. The question of the day, why does the past matter in a relationship? And when you call us, tell us your name, unatupigia simu ukiwa wapi, and then kindly mute your TV, just have it off. Do we have a very seamless conversation? You can also text us on our WhatsApp number 0793 267 279. And today I'm very glad to have a couple. They'll be telling us, well, how long they've been together, kama the past ever mattered for them. Richard Zio is not a new face on this panel. Na juu amekuwa kiniambia about Lydia. Akasema wacha leo Lydia si watch from home. Wacha leo kuja sasa a watch. Lydia Zio as well as Richard Zio. Both of you are counselors, very interesting. I'll start with you because, well, the viewers are seeing you for the first time here. Who is Lydia Zio?
Oh, Lydia. I'm a wife, my mom, I'm an entrepreneur, and a personal development and leadership coach with Beyond Success program in East Africa. Yes. All right.
Zingine umeka.
She's being polite.
Oh, okay.
The country coordinator and regional director for Dr. John Maxwell, Beyond Success Equip.
All right. How about you, Richard?
I'm just an ordinary boy. Her CV is bigger than mine.
We're going with that today.
Oh, yes.
All right. So our African proverb, as we do every single Wednesday, comes all the way from Madagascar, that country that decided it's going to be away from Africa. It says, don't be so in love that you can't tell when it's raining. Don't be so in love that you can't tell when it's raining. Ladies first.
Oh, yes.
Your interpretation of this proverb.
Yeah, I think that's a reality. You know, like being in love does not mean that you're not seeing what is happening. Because when you don't see the reality, you know, when it starts, you know, normally people ask, when did it start raining? Because you're so in love, you're so engrossed in each other's eyes, you're not even seeing the flaws. So when I listen to that proverb, I would think you ignore the red flags and the flaws because you are so in love.
Richard, do you concur? Kuna other opinions?
I think the beauty of what Lydia has just said, love has a way of insulating us from a couple of things. Because if you fall in love, one of the things that happens is that you believe in the person until you really begin to work the relationship. And love begins to showcase a couple of things you had ignored. So the same marriage opened up the blind eyes, so you get to see certain things. So that African proverb is, I like the truism that is in it, that there are certain things you can't ignore. You must face up to the reality and explore life for what it is. Of course, you believe the past for what it is, but in believing the past, there are some things that need to be warned about. I like what happened during the week. She told me a few things about her past. I had no clue. Really? And I'm like, 18 years down the line, I'm getting to know certain things. Of course, they're not that traumatizing, but it informed me in my response to us to love her better based on what she told me.
So meaning the stages of how you even give out this information about your past?
Yes. Like, I think I like one of the animations we used to watch, Shrek, and the donkey will say, people like onions. You know, you keep peeling.
It's really
so 15 years
sometimes
later,
you cry as you peel
as you're
this
peeling,
onion.
you're crying because you realize that the inner you go, the deeper it is.
And we're often told that we are who we are because of our experiences.
Yeah.
And your past really builds you, really. Explain that to us. I'll start with you, Lydia. How are we who we are because of our experiences?
Yeah, I think this begins even from the family we are coming from. You know, if you have had traumas in your family, let's say betrayal, abandonment traumas, it will inform even the kind of person you attract in your life. You know, when you look at it, if you have a wound, what comes to the wound? Mainly the flies, you know, the dirty stuff come to the wound. So if you haven't dealt with these traumas from the past, it will affect even the people who come into your life. So your past, you can't ignore it. And that's why people normally say, you know, when you hear someone say, I don't talk about my past, that's a red flag. You should actually talk about your past.
Those are details. Okay, so how do you give out this information? Even just before you get into this relationship, in that whole dating season, kama sai season ya baridi, ndio sasa mtu anaamua, I've been in the streets for too long, let me decide to have someone else. And you're thinking, let's say for a guy, you're in the whole bit of chasing, or even for the lady, and you wondering, huyu mtu atanikubali just because of the things that I've done in my past. Do I need to tell them right now? And if I tell them years later, will it be I was lying to them? Richard?
There's a saying that says, don't ask, don't tell. But I think for you to have a predictably healthy, vibrant relationship, there are some things that you should consider. Don't tell too much about certain things. You tell in installments certain things. There's a place where you have to be honest, but also there's a place where you need to be transparent.
So when is the right time?
At the initial stages, I think there are certain things that must be must. If it relates with sexual past, if there are more than 3 body counts, please don't tell. I'm not interested. That's the honest truth. If it is related with abuse, at least I'm interested to know some of your past in relationship to some of the abuses you've been able to experience. So I know, can I handle the chaos that comes with that abuse? If it's in matters related to crime, I need to know. Lest we're in a relationship and then I see cops showing up at my door. Who are you dating? Who are you courting? Who are you in relationship with? There are some red flags that I need to know. But if it gets to certain themes related to building trust, you begin to release certain information in installments based on the new relationship you're engaged into. That way, you get to work the relationship. So in working the relationship, I only recommend one, be honest and transparent. Honesty, you tell the truth. Transparency, you say it all. There's nothing to hide. But in being honest, sometimes you tell certain things based on mileage you're having into the relationship. Can she handle this? Can she handle?
And now that bit of handling is where I wanted to go next, Alida, because I might really want to tell you about something very important in my past. For example, as you say, it was abuse, ama nikona kesi na ESCC, but then I feel like, no, at this point, you may not really handle. So is it my position to establish that? Let me just tell you, if you're going to handle it, fine. If you're not, you're ni shauri yako.
I think you should first of all gauge the emotional maturity of that person, if they can handle it. Because if you may face rejection based on your truth. You tell them, I've had this person, they're like, I can't handle because of the emotional maturity. But if you think the emotional maturity to handle what you're telling them, I think it's good just to be honest about it. But again, as you have said, a disclaimer, you can't bear it all open on the first date. You will not have a second date. You know, you may just go for one date every time because you say so much until someone is like, okay, next. You're being honest, but this is scary. Because you grow, intimacy grows. You start seeing into each other over time, but not in one day. Just go for one date and I'm like, my mother killed you. I'm like, who is this? You know, it's so scary. You have a very traumatic past and you're saying it all. And again, like I said at the beginning, heal the wounds. Yesterday I was meeting a counselor, psychologist, a friend I just met, and she was sharing about kids of, she's having a program for kids of divorcees. And sometimes people divorce, they go through their therapy and they heal, but the kids have not healed. So later on, it starts projecting in their 20s, in their teen years. They're like, this boy is acting up, this girl is acting up. But it's because of the trauma of the divorce, which is also a rejection trauma. So it's good to just know, where is this coming from? Because you may think it's just a one-off thing. Someone overreacts and you say, this person is overreacting. To you, they're overreacting. To them, that's their normal. And it's because of their past. So the past plays a key role in current relationships.
So how about the dynamics of I started, or probably just bumped into something about the significant other, and I really wanted to ask them about this. She has never told me about all this. So how do I now start, asking her, hey, naona hapa Facebook 8 years ago you are this and this and this. Richard, how do I go about that?
There's a statement we used to quote way back in school, in physics: to every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. I think if you're going to ask and probe your significant other, are you willing to volunteer the same information toward her? If not, don't ask. It should be that you first establish that all good relationships are built on trust as the currency. If I trust you, I should be able to volunteer information without necessarily you probing me. And with time, you get to make self-revelatory experiences about yourself to your person or the person who you're interested in without coercion. And the more healthy it is in being in conversation, because when you're in a relationship, that's when you get revelation about people. So they reveal themselves with time. You get to see into them, like Lydia has mentioned, that intimacy is into me, you see. So there are certain things you get to see. And when you see them, you talk with them candidly about them, and they'll be able to reveal those details without coercion. I like what precipitated the conversation I mentioned, that she made mention of certain info about her past relationship that I had no clue about. It was in having no more ordinary conversation, and she knows she trusts me, so she can volunteer this part of information to me because I can handle it. Possibly if she did it then, I would not have been able to handle it, but now I could.
So is it the fact that, 15 years, is it the fact that you know someone for too long that certain aspects of your life escape your mind and at the very back of your head, and then years later something probably sparks it? You're probably in somewhere, and then you're like, hey, by the way, nishakwambia hiki tu. It had escaped your mind way back.
That's why I'm saying respond to that.
But then, in retrospect, again, there is the whole intentionally having it and just piling it. You all these years, this has ever happened. I've never shared it with my person. I really trust this person, but then I don't know how to. So you're like, it's been so many years. It doesn't really matter. There are those two sides of the coin here.
Actually, I would say it's because I thought I had dealt with it until I met someone who was going through a weird part of a relationship. So I had to share my story for them to jack themselves out of it. It was more like a therapy session. And when I shared it, he looked shocked because he's like, huh?
I have no clue.
Yeah, so I think I had never seen the need to bring it out. It was to help someone else. For me, I had just I think sometimes we put things in the subconscious. It's just in there. And it's like you have these X-files. You keep pulling one by one. So this one was an X-file to also help someone else navigate the relationship. So when I shared it, they were like, what? They were all so shocked. And so I was telling them, I think I was bewitched, or I think I was stupid or something. Because when you have a past where you've gone through betrayal, you see it and you don't even handle it because you fear rejection. So you just you mask everything, you smile in front of people, you look happy, but because you fear rejection. So I was dealing with this case and I was telling them, sometimes you can actually end up in abuse because of the fear of rejection. The people who don't want to be alone. You leave one person today, tomorrow you're dating someone else because of the fear of being alone.
So how do I, now in the initial stages, how do you tell the significant other? Either mmeingia kwa relationships, probably let's say a year or just a couple of months, and you tell this person, you're trying to tell them, hey, whatever you're sharing is just you're oversharing. Is that is there something like that, first of all? Because I mean, she had mentioned something like that. I mean, it's the first date, and someone is burdening you with all this, the whole emotional stuff and everything. So is there something like oversharing in a relationship?
Yeah, there is. Because when you enter a relationship, to be honest, you come with a commitment to forgive the past, believe the past, support the present, but also encourage the future. But you see, the best predictor of future behavior is the past. So if I'm not going to be comfortable with the past that you're telling me about, and you're making too much revelation about yourself and how many people you've explored sexually, I mean, my interest is, I don't want to know that. If it is more than 1, 2, 3, it's too much, don't tell me. If what I would want to know is it over? That's it. Anything after that, I'm not interested. That is the way I would insulate myself. If it is financial infidelities that you've engaged yourself in unscrupulous business and you owe people too much money, I want to know, are you in danger? If you're not, do you have a way out? That's it. That's all I want to know.
Right. Let's pick this call by Felix kutoka Ngong. Felix, habari asubuhi.
Financial infidelities that you engage yourself in unscrupulous business.
Hello.
Yes, ni aje Felo?
Mzuri sana. Are you in danger?
Kabla uendelee Felix, tafadhali just mute your TV ama have it off ndio tuendelee kuongea vizuri.
Okay.
Umefanya hivyo?
Yes.
Aya. Habari ya Ngong?
Mzuri sana.
Kuna kijibaridi kama huko Nairobi ama iko aje huko?
Huku ni baridi kidogo, ni baridi sana.
Aya, fantastic. Uko na kitu ya kuongezea kwa conversation yetu? Tunauliza why does it, tumeona the past really matters kwa relationship, but then why does it matter?
Yeah. So it matters a lot because now I can't date someone who I don't know his or her past. So it's very important to know their past for me to navigate in the relationship. So sometimes maybe I might come and realize this person is a killer. So I need to be strong enough to sustain this person for my entire life. So it is better to know each other the very first time before we even go further. So that's my comment.
So Fellow, kabla nikuache uende, ni nini specifically mmepatana na mpu hapo Ngong mahali na hii baridi uko na wacha tu nikuwe na yeye? Ni nini utakunaangalia kwa past yake?
The wounds, the sexual wounds. Mtu amekuwa sexual past yake imekuwa vipi? I'll also check on their religious background. I'll check how she was raised before even we proceed. I'll check on the family background, the genealogy of their family. Who are they in their family? So those are the things that I'll basically check before we even go further.
Right. Asante sana Fellow, salimia sana watu wa Ngong.
Okay.
Haya. 0795045864 ndio namba ya kutupigia simu sahihi. Kuko na phone, andika your number sahihi, just save it and then call us live 0795045864. Or better yet, head out to our Facebook page. We have a poll there, and the question is there, does the past matter in a relationship? About 73% say yes. Kwa no ni about 14%. Kuna na wale I don't care. Wanasema ni 12%. I can skim through a couple of them. Elizabeth Mogo says, jumkikataa kushare with each other your past, it may affect you in future. Zaka nasema mambo ya kuvote iliachana nayo. Martin says yes. Someone here says, it's Kaslin says personally no. Let me see someone. Dunston Kim, yes, show me your friends and I'll tell your character. And that really, I mean, definitely shows quite a lot. Because, yes, the kind of things that you probably did in your past, umeacha kufanya. Or certain aspects of your past, they're in your past. But then, the people that you hang out with or your acquaintances, they're not in your past. They're still alive. So once in a while, you probably catch up. Does that also matter? Because they were involved in your past. Certain aspects that happened in your past, you were together with these people. And as he says, show me your friends and I'll tell your character. So how does that play?
I need to know who he is. If it's a man, in my case, I need to know who he is. I don't want to be in a restaurant and you're looking at him and you're frantically panicking that he's here and me, I don't know who he is.
How much knowledge do you need about his other friends?
Who is he? Where does he live? Are you through with him?
Details.
It's important because those are the practical issues that will ail your relationship.
But then what if there wasn't anything really mutual? It was just, platonic kind of friendships. Mlikuwa kwa biashara na mtu, for example, nothing romantic there.
Don't reveal, just say there was something. It's in the past, that's it. No details.
Okay, if I'm trying to understand what you're asking, if it's just relationships, your company, sometimes you get a lot of information from even people's friends. So it's good to know. And if someone does not have friends, that's also worrying. In this, you only have Facebook friends or your social media friends. You don't have physical friends. That's also worrying, what kind of person are you? So it's good to just get to know the friends, the family members, if possible. Meet a sister if they have one, meet a cousin. Let's at least be interested if you're seeing a future, even if it's a business future with this person. Get to know their circle.
All right. We do have all the way to Narok, Judith, habari asubuhi. Hello, Judith.
Hello.
Good morning. Kama unanipata, tafadhali mute your TV or have it off.
What?
Yes, habari ya Narok.
Narok ukwema na nini?
Sisi hapa tuko salama. Uko na maoni ya kuchangia ama uko na swali?
Mimi niko na maoni. For example, unaweza kuwa na mtu mmepatana. Hello. Na sasa mnaketi, unamwelezea maisha yako yenye umeipitia.
Okay.
Alafu hiyo sasa ndio inakuwa kipoko. Ya kukutabia, mkipitana tu kidogo, anakuambia ndio maana yake.
Anaitumia kama excuse.
Hello,
yes. Nasema anaitumia kama excuse kila wakati.
Kila wakati. Sasa naona inakuwa hapo ukikuza na maneno yako ya fast kuliko kuyaposti kwa mtu. Kwa sababu unajua mtu akianza kukuambia ndio maana yake, unajua inakuhata. Mpaka unaona heli ningekupa nayo kuliko kumwambia.
Asante sana Judith. Salimia sana watu wa Narok.
Asante pia nani sana.
Thank you for calling. 0795-045-864 is the number to call in live. Tuambie hizo maoni zote uko nazo. How does the past matter to you in a relationship? Are you currently trying to get into a relationship na unashangaa past year mtu kweli itakuwaje? And Judith raises a very interesting dynamic here. Nilikuambia mimi niko na shida na EACC. Kila time unashinanga kuniambia ndio maana. Richard.
I'd want to hear what Lydia has to say because the lady was asking before I respond to the same.
Yeah, because there's something in psychology they call humiliation trauma. And there are people who use it a lot. Like to humiliate you, tell them the way, even genuine things like even poverty. They see you piling a lot of food in your plate and they say, ndio maana yake unakula hivyo. No, because you came from lack, because they know your past. It can be in a marriage, it can be in a relationship, it can be in the workplace. They're like, they know something.
Yogurt
analamba. Yeah, so it's because yogurt umeiona hapa Nairobi. So you just have to. Yeah, so that humiliation trauma can be actually affect the relationship because someone keeps on telling you, you do something, they're like, even dressing. But again, it also reflects the other person who is humiliating you. There's something they have not also dealt with. Because when you have dealt with your own issues, you don't humiliate another person. Because if you use it as a card When you're having a fight, you pull it out because I trusted you. I told you something about my family. Then you see me behaving in a particular way. You know, like I come from a family where my dad believes in keeping this one car. You know, zile ziko na KV. So maybe I'm so passionate about having maybe an old car.
The
And he's
vintage.
wondering, why can't you just accept a new car? But later on, when I say even my family is like that, then he says, you see? So you use it to, to hurt me, that's wrong. But if you use it to encourage me, like, yes, it's true, you're coming from this vintage family, but you can upgrade. Yeah.
Right. And Richard, even as you come in on this, allow me to say this. Director ameniambia lazima niwakumbushe 0795045864 is the number to call us live. And when you're calling us, tell us your name and where you're calling us from. So I'm not the one who's going to be picking this call. Director Nick will be picking, so utasikia sauti yake, and then he'll link you to us in the studio. So usisikie sauti ingine ushangae, huyu ni nani anaongea. It will be our team handling all those calls. So keep on calling us, and we're really intrigued by your calls, your questions, and your feedback. So even as you come in on this, the whole different kind of dynamics when it comes to your humiliation kind of trauma. Before her call, and just to tie this together, does it mean that now sitakuwa nimefanya enough investigations? Because there's something Lydia was saying. Jaribu kujua her friends, jaribu kujua this person's past, there's that bit of trying to really know this person. So does it mean that sitakuwa nimefanya enough, let me call them investigations, ama background check vizuri, so that I come to know years later that, kumbe past yake iko hivi. Does it mean that I didn't do my background check vizuri?
Let me first say that hurting people will always hurt people. So in every experience where you find someone says things that eat at the self-esteem at the core of another, there's something that is not whole and healed within them. So they will use what is already inside them to bite others. You can't give what you don't have in relationship. So if you have a lot of hurt, quite naturally you will spill it out, it will come out. If you have a lot of woundedness, it will find its way festering into the relationship you have. If one is being able to deal with that, they will be quite fine. But when it comes to navigating relationship, I think you need to do your due diligence. Say that if in your company of friends, 3 narcissistic individuals, you're the 4th one. If you're in a company of people who are obese or they eat too much and they find pleasure in always eating and therefore you're the 5th one. So if in your company of people you have individuals or friends who are always bitchy about relationships, they always say things that scripted in pain, most naturally you're also surrounding yourself with the same kind of toxicity and painful experiences which you transfer in a relationship. So if you want to really have a healthy relationship, do your due diligence. Take time to find out who are her friends. The first time I met her, I remember telling her, I want to meet your friends and I want you to meet my friends. So immediately out of spontaneity organized a dinner and she met all my friends in one single setting here in Nairobi. Being a cross-cultural relationship with my wife, I come from Uganda. So I told her, I want you to come and meet my friends. As soon as she came to Uganda, went out for lunch, and I called all my friends and we sat down just to dine out, for her to genuinely get to know my friends. And she reciprocated the same. She began to bring several of her friends that I got to learn and have been friends to this date. So do your due diligence.
Right. We have another caller, Franklin, all the way from Kisumu. Franklin, habari ya Kisumu Dala? Hello, Franklin. Franklin, kama unanipata, habari ya Kisumu Dala? Right, ni kama Franklin amepotea kidogo. 0795045864 ndio namba ya kutupigia simu. Team will be picking your call and then inaturushia hapa kwa studio. Ukitupigia, make sure that your TV or wherever you're watching us from iko mute ama iko off. So sorry to cut you short, but then the other couple of comments that kipenda tuangalia as well. On Facebook, the couple says, yes, it does for a woman. And Lala Jason says, in fact, the past determines whether a new relationship should be started or not. Kuna maneno mengine ameweka hapo, hiyo ni PG usiku. But then for the couple's feedback, yes, it does for a woman. How do the dynamics play for a man as well as a woman when it comes to, first of all, divulging their past, as well as even the kind of emotional maturity they have, as well as how they even take in the other's past? How do it balance?
I think for women, we trust on credits. We've just met a stranger across the border, and I'm believing what he's telling me, and I'm already like engaging with him in a relationship, not knowing whether maybe he even has a family back home. We just trust in his story, on credit. So
I must warn him, it's a true story.
Yeah. So I think for a woman, we get involved emotionally.
Could I interrupt you briefly? Hold on to that bit. Let's pick all the way to Kakamega. Justus, habari ya Kakamega?
Mzuri sana.
Kakamega kuna baridi ama kuna jua?
Kakamega climate huwa ni 50-50, jua, baridi, so kila kitu iko tu cool.
Aya, pia huko Nairobi kwa hivyo. Leo tunaongelea maneno ya past. Sijui probably unaweza amua kutushare for you, but then uko na swali, uko na maoni on this conversation?
Mimi niko na maoni. To my experience,
all right,
I can say it is true. Past matters a lot.
Okay, why?
Because to me, I've been in several relationships, kidogo. Sio sana, but at least.
Okay.
But what I came to realize is that in most cases, background where a lady comes from is very important. In fact, mostly men sometimes we just end up meeting these ladies, and within a short time, we don't know a lot about them. Then we end up being with them, you see. But when you continue being with them, then you realize that what you had expected from her is very difficult or different. And by the time you start to encounter, and maybe to make her understand that if, for example, I want to know when you are there, maybe from your home or your previous relationship, what exactly ailed you, or what were you suffering, so that maybe you break up, or how did your family brought you up on some issue? Because right now you're inside the relationship and you are like, you cannot get out, and at the same time you have to continue, you see. So past matters, because most of our ladies, I can say, they have a lot of issues where they come to new relationship, they be like, you cannot ask them, inakuwa tu ni siri, but with the time, when you realize something, and you be like, let me follow up about this, you find that now it's difficult, inakuwa chaos, inakuwa like, bado, hata in fact inabaki tu sasa unaachwa hanging, because right now you're like, this is my future. How can I go in a future with you when you cannot be bold enough to solve your past, or to ensure that you are working on your past, you see. So right now, in a present way, you find that as a man, it's difficult for you to find that moving forward, and at the same time, to leave this person, you feel like, let me just hang there. And which in future now, it's up to you now to know that you'll have a lot of heartbreaks, you'll have a lot of insecurity, you'll have a lot of discomfort, you see. So that's what I wanted to contribute at the moment. Thank you.
Right, quite a length and a very bold point that you have there. Thank you very much, Justus kutoka Kakamega. Salimia sana watu wa Kakamega. 0795045864 ndio namba ya kutupigia simu. Usiogope, tuambie kama even in your own personal relationships, how has the past really mattered? Before this call, Lydia, you were talking about matters, the gender dynamics. You can briefly finalize on that before I get Richard's view on what Justice anaongelelea. And keen to note, actually, something interesting that he says is, I'll bring it up, and then kuna ile scaffolds, where mbona nataka kujua nini, all that kind of a scaffold. But before that, you can finalize on the whole gender dynamics.
Yeah, so that's what I was saying. For women, we first get emotionally involved because before we get the facts. You know, you just meet this guy, you love him, he's a box. Then later on, that's when you start wondering, okay, asking questions after already emotionally involved. So for women, you just have to, I know it's hard, but it's good to just have that bit of, yes, I'm involved already, but I need to find out who am I actually dating or getting involved with.
So men do a lot of background check, unlike women.
I think men do. Men do it more than the women, because that's what you find. Even the craziest, the most criminal, you know, the hardcore criminals, they have a woman in their life. And the woman is innocently at home. When he's shot or appearing on the screen, they're like, ha, alikuwa mwizi. You know, because you can't believe this guy, because at home was a different kind of a character. That's why, because the woman already is involved, is in love with this person, they don't really care as long as this man loves me. Actually, when you say, I don't care, this man loves me, you just need to care and find out.
Yes, we don't know, sure. Richard, why the scaffolds? I've brought up about my past, and then Amma, as I was saying, about, let's say, her past. And then now there's the scaffolds, as Justice puts it, the discomfort. Why does it happen?
I would give my own experience. I think I always tell my wife, Lydia, that men were wired differently. We love to think our thoughts as opposed to expressing them. They love to express their thoughts before they think deeply about them. I think in my own experience, when you reveal yourself, and I've not wired myself to journey through that murky experience of that experience, it might cause some kind of conflict of interpretation to the person who's hearing. Let's say the case in my wife. So I think if she's not secure enough that what she's revealing to you, you can't handle it, you'd rather see a therapist, because your spouse is not a therapist to counsel you through whatever you're going through. If instead of saying it and it will ruin what would be good within your relationship, seek counseling and therapy professionally and you'll be helped. For me, I'll ask you questions. I'm expecting responses from you, which you might not necessarily have. Because often when you dig in a dry well, in a place where there's a dry well, it doesn't matter how deep you go, all you'll find is gravel and stone. And that is not healthy for us in a relationship. All I'm expecting is fresh water to refresh me in that experience. So if it is not there, let's source for help. And I think for all relationships, you need a coach. You need mentors. You need people to journey with you. You need therapists to go through your chaos because we all carry traumas in our relationship. So it is good for a man to be compassionate and empathetic towards their significant other. And the same is true to be reciprocated. If you give it, definitely there will be a return of investment on the same. So, but men, that's how we're wired. We're wired to question things, to be curious. And I think a healthy relationship should have that sense of curiosity, to ask the why, the where, the who, and all that follows through with it. It's healthy.
Right. Now that we've established all about the past really matters and even the whole gender dynamics, I want to tone it down kidogo. Speaking on behalf of all the Gen Z pale, ndio umeanza kuingia kwa relationship. But actually hata the word relationship is not even on the table. Ndio umeanza to dates. Unapelekwa hapa, and obviously on the dates there's conversations. And as you're saying, there's some things that he or she might say and might sound ish, you know. So at what point, on both parties, if I'm the one telling all this about my past, and the kind of reaction that I'm getting isn't what I was expecting, you know, you're probably sharing some bits and anauliza, hey, you know, so how do I know that I am safe to continue with this relationship, and vice versa?
Yeah, I like the part you've brought in about young people, the Gen Zs who are getting into the dating scene. And when you look at it, there are people who want to reveal again too much. And you think it's cool. And again, now I think we even have a more complex situation with the social media. Because now already maybe you have posted some things online. Yeah. You have your TikTok and you've already posted and it's gone viral and it's crazy and you've met someone.
Your whole story is there.
Yes. So maybe most likely even a changed person, but because there's storage. Thank God for us, there's not much storage. There's storage. But now it's out there. But most likely, maybe you are a transformed person, you have changed. I think also we need to give people a chance. Don't just brush off people. If they have changed and you can confirm that they're actually in a different journey altogether, it's good to give them a chance. Yeah.
Right. There's a comment here about 2047. The past shapes our present and future. The past has gotten us to where we are. There are things that worked out in the past that we need to relearn and things that didn't, which we need to unlearn and heal from. And as we have about kama 5 or so minutes ya kumalizia. That whole, as much as yes, the aspects of things that were in the past, and as you're saying, yes, you probably stop doing that. You're a changed person. For example, let me use a hypothetical of you, for example, used to do, let's say, hard drugs, kitu kama hiyo, engage in some narcotics, kitu kama hizo tu. And then now in the future, you probably start to relapse. The aspect of relearning and learning with this other person, how does that work, Richard?
It's good to view the lens with which you view the relationship around about you, the lens you use. Because if it is negatively scripted, there's hardly much you can do about it. But if you have some measure of faith in the relationship you have, because trust is the currency that oils any relationship. And if you're going to work that relationship, true, you cannot ignore certain facts as they are. Because if someone has been given to hot temper and anger, animosity, hatred and all that, it will fester itself in the relationship. I don't care how much you love that individual. If he has not gone for therapy and counseling and deal with his traumatic past, you're not an angel, you're not Jesus. It will come up and you better be ready for it. So it is good he deals with his past, painful past as it would be, by going through the professional help he can access, counseling, then you'll be okay. But if the person is an addict, given to self-destructive behavior patterns, as you've mentioned, drugs being one of them, the best predictor of future events is usually in the past. If he's through with it, there should be a track record that he has sought help, gone for rehab, gone for counseling, gone for therapy, and that's a continual process. It'd be good down the line, he can invite you into the journey, and the evaluation that is given to him or to validate that he's through with his experience, there should be substantial evidence to showcase that he's a transformed individual. Don't go into it blindly with false optimism. He's okay. I like the idea that we say, some will tell you, I'm now born again, I'm now Christian, I'm now transformed. True. But how about the cases you get to see some individuals, the same things come over. You were drinking in the past. All of a sudden it surfaces and then it gets worse. So go through therapy and counseling and all the help that you need to get. Don't go into it blindly. For especially Generation Z, which is coming up, the millennials, the alphas who are showcasing their work yesterday in the city of CBD. Some of these things have nothing to do with certain things. There's a past trauma and pains that they've gone through, and they will show up in any relationship.
Right. As you're saying that, something has come into my mind. Ile, we often say that. Lydia, also, as you give us your final thoughts, better the devil you know than the angel you don't know. And I've realized even as we're having this conversation, a lot of the negative past is what really comes with the table, and not really much of the positives Obviously, in your past, there was so much positives that you did, so much projects that you did, Nini, and that rarely comes on the table. And what comes on the table is the negative aspect of that. So, nikiambia sasa my future mpoa, nampatia both of them equally. Now, this is the positive, this is the negative. Because at the end of the day, they are visualizing you in a certain way. The first impact. Back to dating ile hata before dating, this is what you visualize. You probably tell them so many negatives and they start visualizing you in a certain way. But to balance, PIA and as a balance how they see you.
When you say that, I just remember how during the campaign period, the politicians wanauza sera zao and they convince you. They tell you about a dam in a place you have never even envisioned it. So I think the same in a relationship. It should be also sharing your vision. Don't just focus on just the negative things only. Right now, I may be like a young man struggling and sina kakitu, but you're envisioning this business empire and all that. And I think when you take someone else you care for along that journey, it will be more interesting. So like you say, bad news travels faster. More than the good news. So also it's good to balance it out, like you're saying. Also share, in case currently or in the past you don't have anything good to share, share the vision. Yeah.
All right.
You marry potential.
In a sentence each, your final thoughts, advice, or words of advice.
I think relationships are meant to be enjoyed, not endured. So if you find anyone that you stimulates and sets you in a place where you feel excited about life and you can do life with them, be sure that you're hilariously happy while you're doing it, because it's meant to be enjoyed, not endured. And the energy, the vibration you send out will pick the right signal with the right significant other that you're interested in. Right. So give it a shot.
Thank you very much, Lydia. Very briefly.
I would say if you have trauma from your past, let's normalize seeking help. You're not crazy, normalize seeking help, because it will have a great impact on future relationships. That's right. In case it has not worked out, learn why it did not work out, do a post-mortem of your relationship first and why it died before you even start another one.
All right, thank you very much, Lydia, as well as Richard Ziwa, for giving us these wise nuggets. Najua nyi pia mtaenda ku-review later on usiku how tulikuwaje. Thank you very much, and also for tuning in, for all those who called, for those who texted us on Facebook, WhatsApp, as well as our SMS number 22047. Conversation yetu yote, as much as kuna baridi imefanya ukakuwa na njaa kidogo, don't worry, we are cooking for you in a very few. Leo tunapika rumonde matumbo with some creamy murenda na pumpkin leaves. I guess wanashangaa pia wao kama unaweza pitia kitchen. Mnaweza pitia muonje pia nyinyi kidogo kule murenda pamoja, au sio? Chef Brian will be along with you. Don't go too far.
Kila kiongozi ana hadithi yake ya kipekee.
Wazazi wangu walikuwa bit strict kwa sababu mamangu mwenyewe, mimi kutoka kuzaliwa sijailala nje.
The white small one, huyo ana sniff gunpowder na risasi na bomb. Alafu huyo mwingine ni ridgeback ana sniff simba.
Even the employees knows that. So when in the boardroom is the chairman, the CEO, and the rest of.
At what point are you a wife?
The minute you get to that inside that door, you become now the wife.
Na kila maamuzi wanayoyafanya hufichua mengi kuhusu utu wao na uongozi wao.
We see God blessing us, and we now realize the power of giving also has to be rewarded back.
Kupitia kipindi Mfahamu Kiongozi, tunakuletea mahojiano ya kusisimua na uchambuzi wa kina kuhusu viongozi wetu.
Pick your core business as the bigger stones. Put them in your diary first. Give priority the bigger things.
Usikose kila Alhamis saa 1:30 jioni.
as common as opportunities, there are those who dare to defy the odds. They are the entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurship isn't just about starting a business, it's about embracing uncertainty, pushing boundaries and turning dreams into reality.
Hata mbao ni pesa ya kusave. Wallahi. Mbao mwaka ni pesa nyingi sana.
As long as you're earning something, there's always that opportunity to save. And you start with where you are.
The way we run the business is in a very unforgiving way, where every team member has to bring out their best.
So, to all the dreamers, innovators, and risk takers out there, remember, being an entrepreneur isn't just a job, it's a way of life. Join the journey. Become an entrepreneur. The Grind, Mondays at 7:30 p.m.
Here on Beyond the Limit, we celebrate the extraordinary achievements of individuals who redefine possibilities. In a journey of resilience and determination, these individuals demonstrate that limitations are merely stepping stones to greatness.
I'm Nancy Njoroge, a mother of 3. I have 2 girls and a boy who is Clinton and who is autistic.
When my heart got healed, I decided to come out to be creating CP awareness, to let other people know that there is such a condition, and people that has it is not that they are witches.
Together, let's go beyond the limit every Saturday at 8 p.m.
Welcome to The Realtor, where we take you on an exciting journey from bare land to dream home. Step 1. Finding the perfect plot. We explore location, size, and potential. Next, construction begins. Witness the foundation being laid, walls rising, and rooms taking shape. Step 3. Electricity matters. We delve into wiring, switches, and smart home tech. Step 4. From paint choices to fixtures, it's all about aesthetics. Step 5. It's time to get the right furniture. Finally, the big day. Time to move in and create memories. Join us on the journey to making homes a reality on The Realtor, Tuesdays, 6:30.
Kila kiongozi ana hadithi yake ya kipekee.
Wazazi wangu walikuwa bit strict kwa sababu mamangu mwenyewe, mimi kutoka kuzaliwa sijailala nje.
The white small one, huyo ana sniff gunpowder na risasi na bomb. Alafu huyo mwingine ni ridgeback ana sniff simba.
Even the employees knows that. So when in the boardroom is the chairman, the CEO, and the rest of.
What point are you a wife?
The minute you get to that inside that door, you become now the wife.
Na kila maamuzi wanayoyafanya hufichua mengi kuhusu utu wao na uongozi wao.
We see God blessing us, and we now realize the power of giving also has to be rewarded back.
Kupitia kipindi Mfahamu Kiongozi, tunakuletea mahojiano ya kusisimua na uchambuzi wa kina kuhusu viongozi wetu.
Pick your core business as the bigger stones. Put them in your diary first. Give priority the bigger things.
Usikose kila Alhamis saa 1:30 jioni.
In a world where challenges are as common as opportunities, there are those who dare to defy the odds. They are the entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurship isn't just about starting a business, it's about embracing uncertainty, pushing boundaries, and turning dreams into reality.
Hata mbao ni pesa ya kusave. Wallahi. Mbao mwaka ni pesa nyingi sana.
As long as you're earning something, there's always that opportunity to save. And you start with where you are.
The way we run the business is in a very unforgiving way, where every team member has to bring out their best.
So, to all the dreamers, innovators, and risk takers out there, remember, being an entrepreneur isn't just a job, it's a way of life. Join the journey. Become an entrepreneur. The Grind, Mondays at 7:30 p.m.
Here on Beyond the Limit, we celebrate the extraordinary achievements of individuals who redefine possibilities. In a journey of resilience and determination, these individuals demonstrate that limitations are merely stepping stones to greatness.
I'm Nancy Njoroge, a mother of 3. I have 2 girls and a boy who is Clinton and who is autistic.
When my heart got healed, I decided to come out to be creating CP awareness, to let other people know that there is such a condition, and people that has it is not that they are witches.
Together, let's go beyond the limit every Saturday at 8 p.m.
Welcome to The Realtor, where we take you on an exciting journey from bare land to dream home. Step 1. Finding the perfect plot. We explore location, size, and potential. Next, construction begins. Witness the foundation being laid, walls rising, and rooms taking shape. Step 3. Electricity matters. We delve into wiring, switches, and smart home tech. Step 4. From paint choices to fixtures, it's all about aesthetics. Step 5. It's time to get the right furniture. Finally, the big day. Time to move in and create memories. Join us on the journey to making homes a reality on The Realtor, Tuesdays 6:30.
Kila kiongozi ana hadithi yake ya kipekee.
Wazazi wangu walikuwa bit strict kwa sababu mamangu mwenyewe, mimi kutoka kuzaliwa sijailala nje.
The white small one, huyo ana sniff gunpowder na risasi na bomb. Alafu huyo mwingine ni ridgeback ana sniff simba.
Even the employees knows that. So when in the boardroom is the chairman, the CEO, and the rest of.
At what point are you a wife?
The minute you get to that inside that door, you become now the wife.
Na kila maamuzi wanayoyafanya hufichua mengi kuhusu utu wao na uongozi wao.
We see God blessing us, and we now realize the power of giving also has to be rewarded back.
Kupitia kipindi Mfahamu Kiongozi, tunakuletea mahojiano ya kusisimua na uchambuzi wa kina kuhusu viongozi wetu.
Pick your core business as the bigger stones. Put them in your diary first. Give priority the bigger things.
Usikose kila Alhamis saa 1:30 jioni.
In a world where challenges are as common as opportunities, there are those who dare to defy the odds. They are the entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurship isn't just about starting a business, it's about embracing uncertainty, pushing boundaries, and turning dreams into reality.
Hata ambao ni pesa ya kusave, wallahi. Ambao mwaka ni pesa nyingi sana.
As long as you're earning something, there's always that opportunity to save. And you start with where you are.
The way we run the business is in a very unforgiving way, where every team member has to bring out their best.
So, to all the dreamers, innovators, and risk takers out there, remember, being an entrepreneur isn't just a job, it's a way of life. Join the journey. Become an entrepreneur. The Grind, Mondays at 7:30 p.m.
Here on Beyond the Limit, we celebrate the extraordinary achievements of individuals who redefine possibilities. In a journey of resilience and determination, these individuals demonstrate that limitations are merely stepping stones to greatness.
I'm Nancy Njoroge, a mother of 3. I have 2 girls and a boy who is Clinton and who is autistic.
When my heart got healed, I decided to come out to be creating CP awareness, to let other people know that there is such a condition, and people that has it is not that they are witches.
Together, let's go beyond the limit every Saturday at 8 p.m.
Welcome to The Realtor, where we take you on an exciting journey from bare land to dream home. Step 1. Finding the perfect plot. We explore location, size, and potential. Next, construction begins. Witness the foundation Faces of Africa on TV 47.
Welcome back. It is this Wednesday. I'm used to standing in Ngita, and then kuna Chef Brian hapa. Jemzito, what are we cooking today?
Today we are cooking rumonde. It's a dish from the Meru side. Our rumonde will be mixed by matumbo. So it's rumonde matumbo, and we are going to eat it with morenda and pumpkin leaves, which will be creamy. Yeah.
Right. So
okay, from this side I have my pumpkin leaves, I have red tomatoes, I have morenda, I have salt, I have potatoes, I have green peas, I have pumpkin, I have unripe bananas, I have onions, I have cooking oil, and I have my matumbo and milk. Yeah, and here's water.
Your matumbo tuangalie.
It's a beef. Yeah. Beef matumbo.
So procedure first of all, origin meal.
The origin of this meal is from Meru. This is a traditional food. So I want to take you back to the old days where most people or our grandmothers and our late mothers, they used to cook this for us so that you can gain that strength. So it's mostly eaten by the Meru people. Yeah, it's a Meru culture food. Yeah.
Nakogana love-hate language na matumbo, wacha tutaona how it shape up leo. So first off, kuna a pan and 2 pots here.
Yeah, we shall start by boiling our matumbo here. So I'm going to add some water.
The matumbo,
this is a 1/4 kg. Okay. Yeah. We're going to boil our matumbo. Meanwhile, maybe you can also be helping me here. Cut some few things. Yeah. You can help me cut these pumpkins into dices. As I put my matumbo in the fire, on the fire. Chef Brian is I am a chef from Limuru side. That's where I come from. That's home. An area called Kihingo. That's where I come from, and I've been a chef for some few years, a lot of years actually, not a few, a lot of years, and roughly 7. Yeah, I've been in the kitchen for 7 years. Jikoni imekuwa passion ever since I was a kid. Actually, even I have some few marks which I used to get burned in the kitchen. So I've always loved cooking. So I always said when I grow up I want to be a chef. So I'm living my dream. Nikiwa mdogo sana nilikuwa napenda baking sana. Na pancakes and cakes were my best things to cook.
How old were you that time?
I was very young at primary school level, so I was very young.
kupika pancakes in early 20s na huko kitambo.
Actually, pancakes is a very easy thing to cook. Naambianga mtu kama huku jaribu kupika pancake na kitu tulikuwa tunaitanga unga ya ugali, hakuna kitu unajua ukiwa mtoto.
Mimi sasa niliweka yote, nilimwaga all the hiyo liquid yote ndani ya pan, katokea kama pie.
Everybody passes there. Kila mtu lazima akuwe na kahistoria kake kakupika kitu ambayo ulijaribu na ikakudisappoint. So here I'm putting some other water in this bowl so that I can boil my potatoes, my unripe bananas and my pumpkin so that we can mash them. Remember, we are cooking rumonde. Rumonde is a mixture of these unripe bananas and the pumpkins and the potatoes. After you mash them, we are going to add matumbo in them. So it will be a very interesting recipe as we go through it.
Matumbo inafaa kwa moto.
My matumbo is tender. That's the first thing I'm going to tell the viewer. If you're going to buy matumbo, look for the tender matumbo so that it cannot boil for a long time. So my matumbo will boil for roughly 20 minutes. It will be ready now to be added to the rumonde. Here I'm mixing my pumpkin leaves with my morenda because I want to chop them together. We are going to add that one there in the fire. Iko sawa hivyo sasa. Iko sawa hivyo.
Inirushi hapo. Ini how long?
Hapo inafaa i-boil at most 15 minutes.
At most 15 minutes. So tutaanza time yake hapo. Back at home. You're watching us from here.
Tasaidia hiyo.
Nimekata pumpkin, viazi na matoke.
So here I'm going to cut my pumpkin leaves and my morenda so that I can mix them together. After I do that, I'm going to boil them to make them tender so that we can make them now creamy later on. Yeah.
Najua chef morenda kwa English ni
Actually, hapo sitakudanganya. Hata mimi grew up nikiita morenda, so I guess in the culture sasa ishaniingia kabisa na itanga tu morenda.
What's your culture?
Actually, I'm a Kikuyu. I'm a Kikuyu. But when it comes to food, I say I like the Meru and the Luya. Because their foods are so nice. Their food is so interacting in such a way that when you're cooking them, you feel that joy in you when you're cooking it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
From the Gusila and Pia, I change your mind. But then, this is what I will say, because even as a chef, you've grown up knowing this. Foods around you, and then for years you have to interact with other kinds of foods. What's it for you?
For me, it's been a very good experience because I've worked with very many different people from different cultures, and I've liked to interact with their foods. Mostly, there was a time I used to work in Naivasha, and when I was in Naivasha, I guess I was the only Kikuyu chef in the kitchen actually. All the rest were from different language groups, and I learned a lot, even including other languages which are out the country. And I loved it. It's a good experience.
Because you probably find, let's say, someone from the Luya community, there's a way how they even dice the morenda, the pumpkin leaves. When you go to Kikuyu, there is the way how they slice and cut the vegetables.
Yeah, sure.
So let's say even Kanikitungu. I realize a number of people from the Kikuyu community, when it comes to someone nyanya, they probably have diced it into huge pieces and then you punike. But then for others, they slice them into tiny pieces. You come here, you may experience
that's something that is actually there. But the moment you go to school, we also learn a lot when you're doing the culinary course. You learn that there are different types of cuts in vegetables, in our things like carrots and onions. We have things we call batons, we have dices, we have juliennes, all those types of cuts. And it's also the same thing that is happening even in our cultures. You'll find people, everyone, they have their way of cutting things. And not only even the vegetables. even things like our bananas.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Because let's say we come from, we just have let's say full and this is one gospel that I always tell people. Matoke ni matoke.
Matoke ni matoke.
And I really in the central region, Merus, Embu, they have a mixture of a lot of Kamasani or the Rumonde. It would be very rare to find foods in the western region mixed up together and having a lot of colors for food, unlike Toka Central.
Mostly the Central people, that's what they do. They mix their foods together. But when I went to the Meru side and learned this dish, I also spawned something that I never saw in my culture.
Okay.
I have never seen us, the Kikuyu people, mixing mukimo and matumbo. But for them, that's what they do, and that's what they call rumonde. That's what we are making today. Yeah.
Yours and mix vitu na kudalili. Inakuwa kusave time ama.
Okay, it's just a way of making another recipe. You just don't want to do the normal thing that matoke must be matoke. We just want to change it to something else. So it's about making on recipes.
Simple for gatekeepers for the C community, like no. Matoke be like this. So when you go to a number of events, someone in Harusi, put up one from the central community, central region, communities in the central region.
Yes.
Harusi, food people, combined meaning and all that. Lakini one from the western is called a whole different kind of a setting.
Here I've got my vegetables, and there's one thing I'm going to tell people out there. When you cut your vegetables, you're not supposed to wash them. Mine had washed before I cut them, because the moment you cut your vegetables and wash them, you're going to lose a lot of nutrients from them.
Wash them and then now?
Wash them and then now you cut them. Yeah. So I'm going to clean this up.
Right, so matumbo tulipea noma?
Matumbo tulikuwa tumeipatia at least 30 minutes. Iko imeboil. Yeah, so. Tulikuwa tunaambiwa you work as you clean.
Yes. So next up?
The next thing now, I'm going to cut my onions and my tomatoes so that they can be ready for frying once we boil our vegetables. I'm going to peel it.
The diced kind of way.
Yeah. Meanwhile, you can be stirring for me this.
Kitunguu kwa maji.
Na kitunguu ufai kuweka kwa maji, let it fry. Let it fry. Ndio upate hiyo taste yake.
You know one thing about traditional kind of foods, hakunanga like one playbook on how you go with it. Kuna different varieties. So mimi venye nilifunzwa ndio usitoe machozi sana. Kwa maji, preferably warm water.
Whatever happens, you can also put it, it's true, it's a very true thing. You can also put it in salty water. It also helps to make you not cry when you're cutting it.
So what's your strategy?
My strategy in Onisilia, I make my body moisturized. You can see it, it's moisturized, and also my hands, they should be moisturized. That way the water is going to absorb your ukali, so that's what happens. Okay. That's why people say put it in water, put it in salty water, hot water. It's still the same. Yeah.
Right.
So my onions, I'm going to cut them into small dices. And cut them into small dices because they are for frying the vegetables.
You have to be very careful when you do that.
Don't try this at home. Charlie, don't try this at home.
So we shall have 2 onions there?
Yeah, 2 onions will be enough for that. These are for frying our vegetables.
We have even other ingredients to make in case one wants to play around with this and experiment it. Like in a garlic, ginger.
I would advise, especially if you're doing your greens, you can use the garlic and ginger, but you cannot use the pepper. It's not advisable to put pepper in your greens. Mostly pepper is used in stews and also for garnishing and salads. Yeah.
And even for the powder kind of spices. You really avoided them?
I've really avoided them because remember our food is a traditional food. Back then in the days, we didn't have those ingredients, those spices. They used to make it, to make their meal using the farm products, mostly the farm ginger, farm garlic, farm capsicums. That's what they used to use. You can see our matumbo is boiling. We're going to add some salt in it. It will also help it to tenderize.
So does that mean we'll also add
after I may boil, not to add, because I always discourage people to eat raw salt. Raw salt has some health issues. That's why. Our food is a very rich nutritional value food because like when you look on the bananas, they're very rich in zinc, same case to potatoes. And our potatoes were peeled. I know there are people who cook unpeeled potatoes. Our potatoes were peeled, but if you want to use unpeeled potatoes,
some people use me.
Yeah, people when you're using unpeeled potatoes, wash them thoroughly to avoid germs in the food, and then you can still boil. It is still going to work. Yeah.
Because typically you have peeled, boil, unatoa. But then now that you don't mix with other food.
Actually, even whatever happens, the potato peel is also very nutritious. But very many people tend to throw it away. Like there's a dish from the Germans called Haselback potatoes. It is baked with the potato peels. Yeah, and it's very nutritious. So
we are
going to mix it ziendelee kuboil pia hapa. Kumbuka unafaa your peas, it should boil completely so that it can also be very easy to mash. Usiweke ikiwa raw. So our matumbo is boiling very well. You can see it's almost ready for adding them into our rumonde.
Each repair how long?
You should go to maybe 30 minutes pia. Here I'm going now to be frying my onion. Now whatever I want to make here, it's called pomodoro sauce. Pomodoro sauce but this is a homemade pomodoro sauce. The ancient one. We are going to pomodoro. We are going to put our onions, we fry our onions and our tomatoes. So that when our vegetables are ready, we're just going to stir them a little bit in it, and then we can put some milk.
Pomodoro sauce is very common.
Watu wengi wajuangi venye inaitwa, actually the most used sauce in the kitchen.
Yeah, true, because you read about other ingredients.
Yeah.
Onions as well as tomatoes.
The pomodoro sauce is going to give our greens a taste and also an attractive color. Our matumbo is getting ready.
So you have it brown. And itakuwa brownish, kind of golden brown.
Itakuwa too golden brown. Yeah. Maybe you can be stirring it there as it cooks.
In a car right here. If you want to take a 204 number. There's probably a very rich Kenyan traditional food yenye ningependa upikie. Vizuri uone. Kama vizuri tuwe cook na mmeru. Traditional menu. Ito monde matumbo. That's pumpkin leaf hapa na murenda.
I'm cutting my tomatoes. And if you can look, I didn't remove the seeds of the tomatoes because mostly we do that when you're making our salads. So I'm still going to use even the seeds.
One question that I love asking chefs here, what item ya kitchen yenye huwezi kaa bila cooking?
Well, cooking, mostly it's salt actually. That's the most commonly used seasoning in the kitchen. I don't think many people can cook food without salt. It will be tasteless. But in terms of these other spices, my best spice is the garlic and ginger.
Garlic and ginger, yeah. Mixed up together.
Not mixed up together.
Oh,
pure kando.
The powder-ish when it's just raw as...
I love them as raw as it is. I love it all. If it's grounded.
So, I mean that's one of those pilipili.
Pilipili naipenda kama ni mimi najipikia.
Maybe pilipili labda ni kwenye macho. But if you pale and you just add the pilipili.
You can see our matumbo has boiled. We are going to remove this water and add it now here. We are going to boil all of them in one pot now.
How do you know, apart from the time frame, how do you know imeanza kuiva hivyo?
We ina shrink. Hata ukiangalia matumbo yetu usi venye ilikuwa imeshrink, imejikunja. Now you can see it's also changing a little bit of color. It's become a little bit brown. Yeah. That's how you know your matumbo is getting ready.
So unaweza tumia hii then to your maji.
To drain the water.
You continue telling us what is going to
we are still boiling our rumonde here. Remember, our rumonde is a mixture of potatoes and ripe bananas, pumpkin, and now I have added green peas. And now I'm going to add the matumbo inside it when you bring, so that now they can boil all of them together to enhance that taste of each and every ingredient that we have. Here I'm also frying my onions. And you can see it's now turning golden brown. Remember, I'm making pomodoro sauce. Our pomodoro sauce is going to be used when you're making our vegetables.
Ile nasimanga karibia TV uone kama utapata hiyo sana. How matumbo are looking like. Kama leo tamu vilivyo, the onions are golden brown.
Yeah. So nitaweka saa my tomatoes.
Hii matumbo ni vipi?
Matumbo utaweka hapa kwa the rumonde.
So, do you start?
Yeah, you can start. Dogo tu. So you're going to mix it.
A part of me is very curious how this is going to taste.
It will be very tasteful. It will be very sweet.
Hii ni ile tunasemaje na kama shakura. Very, very curious how this is going to be.
Hivyo ndo watu wa kitambo walikuwa wanapika mashakura. But when you look at it, it's a very, very healthy food actually.
Something interesting by the way, one of my early guests having the relationship conversation alikuwa ananiambia he's a Ugandan, so alikuwa ananiambia rumonde is Ugandan.
Yeah, rumonde is an origin of Uganda actually. But the moment it came to the Meru side, they made it a bit modernized rumonde because for them they are mixing a lot of things in it. Wakaamua ongeze hizo vitu zingine. Yeah. But in Uganda rumonde it's just the mashed banana. Nothing else.
Something else for the viazi. Viazi ukitaka unaweza dice them.
Yeah, you can dice them. It also helps when you want to cook a little bit faster. Also the same case with the bananas. When you want it to fasten up, so you can dice it.
Unasikia ni ngumu.
Itaiva tu. Itaiva.
Ile bado prepare how long?
Let's give it some few minutes, we see. We're going to add some salt there. So that it can boil together. Ndio hata hiyo chumvi ingia hata ndani ya hizo viazi, ndio hata tukibonda itakuwa tamu. I'm also going to add salt here. When you are making your pomodoro sauce, remember I said this is a homemade pomodoro, so we don't have the soy sauce and all the other ingredients. When you are making your pomodoro sauce, we should add salt after the tomatoes so that it can help the tomatoes to fully cook.
Now, instead of blend the tomatoes?
You can also blend, but if you don't have a blender, remember I told you these are the ancient days, so I want to take everything back to those ancient days. So I'm going to add a little bit of water. So utanisaidia na sufuria. Then ulienda nalo, we boil our greens now. Yeah, you can just watch it a little bit. My career has been a very smooth career ever since I joined it, because the moment you have a passion of something, you slowly grow into it. And with the different people I've worked with, the different companies I've worked with, they brought me up to here where I am today. So it has been a very smooth career. As a chef, challenges ni mingi kwa barabara, because one thing, for you to satisfy your customers, lazima ujitume. Like unapatanga the times you are working from 6 to very late hours in the night, from 6 in the morning to very late hours in the night. You've been standing all day, making your food, uko kwa moto all time. So those are the challenges, but I always tell people, hard work always pays. Yeah. So it's ready. It's boil our boil. It boil sana for 4 minutes.
4 minutes.
Yeah, just 4 minutes.
After the 4 minutes, the color.
Actually, itakuwa more smooth. Na zitakuwa zime soften. That's why we are boiling them, to soften them. Yeah. Remember I told you my greens, I had washed them, and I have advised very many people to wash before they cut them, because after you cut, you're going to lose a lot of nutrients. So I'm going to add them to the water. I'm going now to leave them to boil on their own. Itaiva tu. Imeanza kuboil, so it's in the process. I'm going to bring me some water. Hapo ya udi napikanga haraka. But now because in the modern days, ndio sasa tunatumia our gases. Yeah. Actually, myself, I have a hotel somewhere called Janelle. Janelle Hotel, it's in Zimmerman. And when you come to that place, whatever we cook a lot there, the traditional dishes. That's what I have majorly. Yeah, that's my interest, the traditional dishes. So it is well known for its mokimo and uji power. But at times I also even make the traditional porridge, which people used to use cassava. I also do make it. Also cassava ugali, it's there. The brown ugali, it's there. Yeah.
So we're gonna make a whole ready kind of a menu.
Yeah, we have a whole menu of the traditional foods.
And if you want to nataka the traditional foods here, maybe hamna hiyo siku. You rate that for me
if it's something we can make for you, at the moment, we will make it for you. But if the ingredients, we have to go searching for them, I'm going to request you to come back another day and you're going to find it. Yeah. You can see our pomodoro sauce. It's now getting ready. I want all these tomatoes to be fully cooked, because mostly when you're doing your greens, the tomatoes should not be just looking at you. I mean, they're uncooked.
Unapata the outer layer hapo
ndio mandizi zimeanza kuiva. So then our potatoes are going to be ready now. Now boiling very well.
Would you advise mtu pork na kitu because without that you can't really know?
Actually, we use there's a metallic being used in a kitchen, a very stretched thing that looks like a needle. That's what we look if our food are ready with. Yeah.
Ndio anapikia hii chakula yote. Anapikia wageni. How long does it take?
Ukipikia wageni, I will advise you, kama unapika hii rumonde, usitumie gas. Juu itakaa sana kabla hivi. Juu you're going to have a lot of it and many potatoes, many bananas, and they do take time to cook. So I'm going to ask you, kama uko na ile jiko ya makaa kubwa vizuri, pika nayo. Kama uko na kuni, use the firewoods.
But averagely,
averagely, the most time you can give it maybe, kama ni watu wengi, maybe an hour. Yeah, kama ni watu wengi sana. But you can see our portion is small.
Hii tunasili ya watu kama watano.
Yeah.
Familia watu watano. So 45 or so minutes?
Yeah, 45 or so minutes is going to be ready.
So now we have about 15 minutes to rotate.
15 minutes is going to be ready actually. Tutakuwa tumemaliza hiyo.
Okay, tumemaliza na tukaonja.
Tutakuwa tushamaliza kila kitu.
So we continue, mtu anaangalia venye unapika nini, your professionalism. Akitaka reaching out to you, do you do freelance?
Yeah, I do freelance.
How does that work?
Mostly for the freelance chefs, we have a catering company. Everyone has a catering company if you're doing freelance. For me, my company is called Blue Wine Catering Company. I love the blue wine because it's an expensive wine, so my catering services are also expensive.
So mkulima mdogo.
See it in expensive. Like in the services I'm rendering are expensive. Yani I'll give you a 5-star service at a lower cost. Yeah. Hizi unaona zimeiva sasa. Taizimia.
Your freelance, is it easy for an upcoming chef? Someone watching you now, and to start up on this whole catering, is it easy to, because there are so many other chefs out here, so many people who cook. Is it easy to penya for it?
It's very easy to penya. I always tell you, if you have an interest in cooking, just talk to me. Maybe you can go to my Facebook handle, and my Facebook handle is Ombo Ibrayo. If you can go to my Instagram, it's Chef Brian Jogu, and also in TikTok, it's Rayo1. You will get me there. I'm going to link you up with my company. I'm going to teach you how to cook, how to give good services of the food, and you're going to like it. Yeah.
So speaking of liking it, I love how the vegetables imeanza sasa kwele na ile stickiness fulani yake.
Hiyo sasa ndo murenda sasa.
Ndio murenda. Lazima ikuwe ile stickiness.
Ile yeah. So another reason as to why we boil, other than making it tender, you know, these grains, I always tell everyone, grains are so delicate when cooking. You can lose a lot of nutrients and you'll be eating something raw. Just the leafy part of it, but no nutrients. So another reason as to why we boil, it sells the nutrients in it. Because when I just come and fry it direct, the nutrients that are in the vegetables are going to get lost in the just through frying. So that's another thing as to why we do boil this.
All right. When you take a look at, let's say, risotto, okay, the pumpkin leaf, we come from tomato risotto. So Shanghai, yeah, so the pumpkin leaf as well as murenda, because they are traditional, so it's because they don't get that, the sort of wild vegetables. And they have a certain planning kind of planning to ndani yake. So is milk one of the reasons that will make it have a kind of sweeter taste? Because one of the kama ukipika let's say saga, Saga also has your
curly.
plant.
Yeah, milk is still a reason as to why it will neutralize your curly. But it does not also neutralize that much. But I always tell someone, if you're eating, us we call it kahurora, the pumpkin leaves, kahurora.
Kahurora.
Yeah, kahurora. If you're eating such things and the managu is the pigweeds and those ones, if you're eating them and they are na hiyo ukali, hiyo sasa ndo. Hiyo chakula sasa. That's the taste of it. You should enjoy that taste actually. But if ni kali sana, pia kachumvi au pomodoro sauce inakunga spiced up a bit, it also helps. Yeah. But remember us, hatujai spice up leo. Hapo unaweza add garlic, ginger, soy sauce, all those.
Okay.
Ndalizi zinaokaa zimeanza kuiva.
In case you're just joining us right now, unashanga, hey, hiyo ni nini kukubi hot pot? This is what is called rumonde.
Rumonde.
Hapa hii ni matoke wenye unaona. Hii ni matumbo. Hapa hii ni peas. Peas unaita aje?
Peas kwetu tunazitanga minji.
Oh, minji.
They are the one, that's the name where we found minji. When you're referring to a lady. Yeah.
Okay. Yes, hizo ni viazi hapo. You know, whole mix up, it's a meru dish. And when you equal alafu hapo you have, we're going to be having your pumpkin leaves as well as
murenda.
Murenda, yes. Jumona murenda inapotea. Tuweka hapo alafu maziwa tuko na mix. And then the two classes. So are we like how much quantity?
Mostly we are just going to use 1 glass of milk in it, so it will be enough for that. Yeah.
Okay. Now let's say you pia viewer kiwacha kitaka labda pia natengeneza sahi. Curious. What quantity am I going to be using here?
Usiweke maziwa mingi because we don't want the milk to be the soup. We just want the creaminess in the greens. Okay. Yeah. You can see it's now becoming sticky.
Na bonda bayo.
Na bonda ndo zikuwe tender. You know, when you're hitting something that you're cooking, it tenderizes. Okay. Yeah. So we are now going to, as they boil here, we are going now to light this one again, so that now we can be transferring it to the pomodoro sauce for us to cook it now.
Something else for this one, hii rubonde, is it advisable to put tunashinda tukitantana ama tuiache tu boil?
Sasa tuiache tu boil hivyo for now.
Something also I forgot, pia kuna malenge hapo.
Hiyo ni malenge.
Malenge imeanza kuwa soft yenyewe pia. Imeanza katika.
Sasa tuko karibu kufika penye tutaanza kubonda the mukimo itself now. Yeah.
Ni hiyo venye iko. Pia good. So yeah, I think
chaiva hivi tu kidogo sasa. Yeah.
Ni viazi pekee kile nipea tatanishi.
Itaiva tu. And then if you overboil it, inakuanga soki ukikula. So I advise people usi overboil. Acha tu boil venye inafaa venye inabondeka. Yeah.
The water in here will have to be drained by
yeah, later to drain. Okay. Hiyo ilikuwa tu ya kuivisha hizo viazi na the bananas.
Do you drain all the water or unabakisha kidogo to also help you in mashing?
Mostly if we are just using potatoes, tungebakisha maji ndio isaidie kuimoisturize kidogo. But for now we are not going to have any water in the mixture because tuko na vitu kama malenge na mandizi. Ukiangalia malenge na mandizi, they are so soft, so itasaidia ku soften the viazi pia. Yeah. Another thing is you overboil your greens. Kiona sasa ziko sawa.
Sawa. How can I help you there?
Haya, taka sasa nikiziweka hapo, you just add them for me. So zito hapa hivyo tu direct.
Acha ifungetumie ile ama iko sawa.
Iko tu sawa hii.
Sasa isaidie na
ndio iende haraka hata.
Kazi najaribu kuvudia mkono hapo.
Tungo sichomeke.
I love how it's looking like. Ila feel ni kudijiba.
Kwa kuspina.
There's a chef was who is also a DJ in India. When you're cooking some of this and starting, it also feels in a to DJ from one point to another for the whole cut.
Actually, I have a number of friends who we cook with. The moment you are going to cook, when you meet with them, I just tell them, nimeenda kuspin. They will understand I've gone to cook.
What does society think and tell you about men who cook? Do you kuna ile notion ya if you cook, then that means your partner atakuwa sawa kwa nyumba. Yeye hatakuwa anapika, ni wewe unapika.
Actually, hiyo ni uongo. Like me, I've been a chef for the last 7 years. Now, the moment I'm at home, maybe I can just help in cooking. But most of the times, I'm not even the one in the kitchen. But I really love cooking in such a way that when I go home and I find they're cooking, I'll just chip in and help. Cooking is something that comes from your heart. You just don't wake up one day and decide to be a chef.
Those kuna kuzana ile wewe umezoea assertive kama ni vitunguu zinakatwa how you dice them. Alafu yeye unaona anakatakata sijui aje, probably amekatakata kwa mkono and then the very huge diced chunks.
Sure.
And deep down you're like, no, this is not how you do it.
That's why
unakuwa na ile freedom plan even as someone who's experienced. Ile freedom okay, you do your thing.
Actually, for me, the men who cook, I do encourage them. When you're in the kitchen, and maybe you're with your wife, and your wife is not a chef actually, is not a professional chef, and you're a professional chef, go teach her, go cook with her. It also creates that bond as a husband and a wife in the house. Like me, my mentor, ever since I was in school, his name was Chef Edgar. Edgar Monyinyi. Right now, he's somewhere good, let me say so. And I had some good luck to meet him later on in life. And he really walked me through this journey a lot. And I used to visit his place. And every time I visited his place, he was the one cooking it for us. And most of the time, the wife was there to help. So I took that from him, and I always admire it when men are in the kitchen with their wives. Hii si ya wanaume peke yake.
No, you know, like 5 minutes kumaliza hii maneno yote.
Zetu na expect zimeiva as we talk. Yeah.
Tuanze process ya kudrain.
Sasa hii utanidrainia hii maji.
Okay. Yeah. Juu tutakuwa nashikilia na nini mbili. I don't know if you're using that huge.
Ama acha nikudreinie unikorogeange hapa. Yeah.
Ndio tusifike pale kwa kudrain chakula yote iende kwa sink.
Acha nikudrainie.
Back here we have the pumpkin leaves as well as murenda. Tumeongeza maziwa. Hii maziwa ya ng'ombe sio?
Ni ng'ombe.
Also goat milk.
You can also use goat milk actually.
It's very nutritious. And this mix up with this one. Sasa kama that means when tumeongeza maziwa tutakuwa na ile stickiness fulani ya murenda as much.
Yeah.
You know, it's very creamy.
So you can see our mixture how it looks like now. Hii sasa ndo tutabonda bonda. Itazima hii.
So hii inarudi kwa moto?
Hiyo irudi sasa. Hiyo sasa kazi yake imeisha hivyo. Ni kubonda tu sasa imebakia. Yeah.
Bonda.
And also add a little bit of salt to make it have a good taste.
Utauliza hii chumvi tumeongeza hapa si nyingi sana?
Si mingi actually. Unajua ile tulikuwa tumeweka ya kwanza most of it imeenda na maji, ilikuwa tu ya kufanya ikue na taste ndani ya hizo viazi. Kusaidia ndio at least tuharakishe kidogo.
So when you also want to serve this along, let's say fruits, drinks,
mostly whatever the Meru do when they make rumonde, hawatatengenezea mtu kama vitu kama uji, because when you look, this food is a very heavy food in the body. Na whatever mostly they use, you can just have a glass of water. If not a glass of water, you can have tea. If not tea, you can have coffee. Hiyo naona hata iko ready, utaizimia sasa. Tunaelekea sasa kuserve chakula yetu sasa.
ile maneno ya presentation. Making sure as much as pia ni traditional time simu hapa ndio zianze kunipigia niambie mbakishie chakula. The maneno ya presentation, so saying as much as it's a traditional food, pia presentation lakini making it very classy.
Yeah.
Tuambie how, again, let's say for example kuna pikio again, how do you in a very classic kind of way present this kwa sahani?
Whatever happens, when you are presenting such a thing, mimi yangu I place it at the center. Nitakuonyesha venye I place it.
So just
Kiangalia our greens ziko very very creamy.
Oh yes. Every single thing should be
inafaa ibondeke sasa.
Okay.
The only other thing utaona sasa maybe a little bit of piece na the matumbo sasa. Na sasa tumepata the texture venye tulikuwa tuna desire.
So just before it taste, ni nini itakuwa more sana kwa ulimi? Ni flavor gani?
The flavor yenye unafaa kuisikia sana, you know malenge is so strong than the mandizi and the potatoes in terms of taste. So hiyo ndio utaisikia sana. Sasa na the matumbo utaisikia hata ukitafuna because it's a little bit hard kuliko hizo zingine.
Yes. Now this really inspires me kutembea Meru. We're coming and just tasting your meal. Mtuambie venye sisi tumeitengeneza hapa Nairobi, pia nyinyi mnaitengeneza hivyo whatever you are pale Meru. Sio ile kwa county 0 namba ngapi, but then tuonje hii rumonde.
Ukiangalia rumonde now is ready. Ukiangalia imepata ka different color sasa. Iko na the yellowish in it because of the malenge. That's why I had to put malenge so that you can adjust the color. Yeah. Sasa kama ulikuwa kule Uganda ingekuwa tu the plain white ya mandizi. Yeah. So I'm just now going to serve my food.
As you do that also kuna malenge na kuna butternut.
Kuna malenge na kuna butternut. Yeah.
Kama nilikuwa nataka kutumia butternut?
Kama ulikuwa nataka kutumia butternut ungetumia tu, but butternut takes more time kuliko malenge kuiva. So it's a boil kidogo.
Boil.
Yeah.
But pia inaweza work.
Yeah, inaweza work. So I'm going to serve my food.
Wenye sakaje usema lazima iwak.
Lazima ifanye kazi.
Lazima iwak. This totally looks different from what I was looking at earlier. Nilo naambiwa ukikula ukiwa usikue kwa when ulikuwa unapika. The bush of science, because a number of chefs tell me amepika nyama the whole day ama anapika certain meal the whole day. Akienda kukula
anakosa the appetite. It happens. And the reason as to why it happens that when kwa sababu huyo mtu hiyo smell imeshinda ikimpiga. So the moment anasikia hiyo smell like anakula hiyo food inamuirritate.
Alafu hiyo mrenda
pana inakaa tu kama maziwa juu. My mrenda to place it on top to give it a good presentation.
Yes, najua yes. About 2 minutes to wrap it up. Kimalizia unaweza tukumbusha where can one get you?
When you want to get me, I don't know if you can give my personal number.
Yes, true. Kama uko sawa nayo, ama ni M-Pesa,
kama unataka kunipata, mostly for those people who want the catering services, my phone number is 0745 105 399.
Nazirudia tena nikelea hapo juu
0745 105 399. That's my personal phone number, or you can visit me at Zimmerman. You can come and we shall talk. Yeah.
Unaweza tuambia kumbushe hii menu
tumetengeneza rumonde matumbo. It's a mixture of bananas, pumpkins, potatoes, green peas, and matumbo in them. You mash them all together to make something like a mukimo. And our accompaniment is the morenda and pumpkin leaves, which are creamy morenda and pumpkin leaves.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sawa. Najua watu wa kitambo walikuwa nakula na mkono, hawako na hizi cutlery yote. Tunafaa tu.
Tungekula tu, tungeoga tu tuitafune hivyo.
Kama moto hivi, let's
ile nikichomeka.
Tusikie, let's start with the rumonde itself. Tusikie venye iko. Malenge the first flavor that have in my mouth.
Yeah.
As well as for the vegetables.
Mm-hmm.
Just a pinch of it. Both of them intertwined vizuri with a very ish slap ndani ya mdomo vizuri. There you have it. That is how we do it every single Wednesday 9 a.m. on Tasty Wednesday, cooking this kind of meals and your food jaribu. Some traditional kind of foods, just appreciating our African heritage. I'm Yusuf Sam Mungita, been here with Chef Brian.